Welcome to my world. Come on in and make yourselves at home. Welcome to my life. I know everything's gonna be all right. Welcome to my world. Oh, won't you come on in? Welcome to my life. It's known as the Tiger's Den. Greetings to all of my subscribers. I want to thank you for being with me for as long as you have, and the new subscribers that's coming on in. We want to say greetings and thank you for your time. This is from Toothless and the moderators. Welcome to the Tiger's Den. This is the voice of Cheryl, and I am Toothless Tiger, bringing you another true story. I want to say greetings to you by Capricorn and the others that are looking from the bushes, from the trees, from the beach in Belize, the cruise ship, wherever you may be. I want to say welcome to the Tiger's Den. And if you would for me, please hit the like button if you like what you've heard so far. It helps when we get people that watch our work actually like the work so that YouTube can put the work out there. And so I ask that you would do that for me. If you saw the thumbnail, we got the ATL Outlaws, the political gangbangers. And I call them outlaws because they're attorneys. And a lot of times, if you understand law and the science of it, then you'll understand that a lot of the times the attorneys are out of the law. And so, they're known as outlaws. A lot of people don't know that, and that's not all attorneys, because we see these young esquires that's working on the Young Thug case, giving it all that they have to give. The same with Ashley Merchant and her cohorts working on the Donald Trump RICO case. So what we're going to start with tonight, I thought we would start with Fulton County Commissioners meeting. This is very important to know how the people in Fulton County and the issues that they're bringing before the commissioners. The commissioners are the people that are responsible for funding these municipalities in their county. And they don't hold them to account. They just dish out money. And it doesn't matter where the monies go, apparently, because they give them a line item budget. But by the time they disperse the money, these people do whatever they want to do with the money. Greetings, Roseanne. Good to see you. Okay, she in class. See, there's somebody still going to school trying to learn something to help somebody. And that's what it's all about. But what we're going to do is listen to some of the citizens of Fulton County and the city of Atlanta, express their grievances with the commissioners. And oftentimes when you talk to these type of organizations, they don't have the power to enforce any laws. They can enact how they do things within their system, but they can't, go and arrest anybody or bring charges against anybody. they can make recommendations, and again, they fund the places within the municipality so they can possibly decide what funding that they're going to give and who they're going to give it to. That's about the nature of what they do. Give me one moment. I'm trying to speak. I'm slow but sure. And so we're going to listen to a few people. We may not listen to everybody that went before the board, but I do want us to hear some of these people and what they have to say. You know, every time I move in my chair, I have to get comfortable 3 or 4 different times, and it make all of these noises. It reminds me of Cat Not Williams' squeak counter. They count how many times the chairs squeak when the DAs get up and down in their chairs. And that's so funny to me because I never catch the squeaks. But it's people that really hear it and, you know, they call it out. That's funny. But also I want to think about the people throughout the United States, because there are several states that have had catastrophes with the weather. And I can't name them all, but we can uplift all the people. A special uplifting for those in areas that were heavy, you know, stricken. But we can also do that for anybody that's going through anything, really. Because we're all going through something, I believe. Look at these young men and what they're going through. And I sometimes listen to the arguments in different chats where people, some say that these guys are so guilty and they don't know why they wasting time and they should throw away, you know, lock them up and throw away the key. And then you have some that say these guys haven't done anything and they just picking on them because they're black. And then you have people that think kind of like myself. I don't know whether they're guilty or innocent of certain things. Even if you're proven guilty, doesn't always mean that they got it right. Chances are great, and that's the fairest opportunity that you have, but even then it can be wrong. Even your plea deals, like look at Montauk, or however they say his name, never can get it right, so forgive me. But right now they're using his words that he used as a witness to take away his plea deal. And he's just saying that the things that are said in there may have some of his sentiment, but actually those are your words, not mine. Because if I'd have said it this way or that way. And we all know how we, you know, talk and how we speak. So we can relate to that. These things are relatable human issues. And then they pull them all together based on what they call a RICO charge. And that's where the problem lies. And then that's where all of, I could say, the dichotomous issues come in, is when they get to the RICO, because we haven't met RICO yet other than the DA's office. And, you know, those are supposed to be positions of honor, because they're supposed to be working on a reasonable person's theory and a good faith basis. And we just don't see that in this case. It's more like a circus, a 3-ring circus. And it's like it's a never-ending circus, and a circus that's lost everything that endears you to a circus, with the exception of their clowns. And so that's kind of disheartening. And then sometimes we can't tell if the ringmaster, which is supposed to be the judge, the referee, we can't tell if she's actually being fair, if she's feeling good today, if she's had a drink today. And the lady may not even drink. But sometimes in the manner in which she speaks and the words she let come out of her mouth and the giggling for me that I can't stand, sometimes it just seems like she's not all there and she's not in tune with what's happening. Perhaps she is. And again, I don't even know if the lady drink, but she sounds like a person that's under the influence of something sometimes. So let me see what my Capricorn said. Yes, you. Oh, that's good. She said, yes, you've motivated me, so I will be bringing my report card to you for my reward, and you shall get a reward. So congratulations, and you keep doing the thing, because I'm so happy when people decide to do something because they want to do it, and they don't let anything stop them, such as age or, you know, whatever your vice may be or whatever your thoughts of yourself may be. We really are brilliant and resilient people, us humans, and we really think a lot alike, even though we may differ in some ways. But I tell you, we're more alike than we are different. And it would be good if we knew truth. Then we could have a conversation that's worth having. But with us Asiatics, we were taught so very little, and our identity was stolen. And so we don't really have a great concept of who we are. It's very hard for us to have real meaningful conversations. We can pretend that we do, and most of us, that's all we do is pretend to have a good conversation. A lot of times people are talking at you. They're not talking to and with you. They're talking around you. Hey, Phyllis, and hey, Bay. So, without further ado, we're going to start with L.A. Pink, and I've talked about her a lot here on the show, and I oftentimes drop her link in the chat, which I'll be doing that tonight as I drop the different people that I watch links. But she is an advocate there in Atlanta, and she covers multi-counties, so she's not just strictly to one county, and they do a lot of grassroots work. And so she goes every commissioner's meeting. She's at those meetings, and she's going to be one of the first 5 speakers. Since I've watched them, and I haven't watched them every month or I don't know how often they meet, but I know at least once a month. She may not be, the first one at most, but I can guarantee you she's in the top 5. And, her story never changes. She's always advocating for somebody. And this time it's a senior citizen. And then it's a few different people. Some of the ones that I'm accustomed to seeing, I didn't see them. But of course, we don't know what's going on in people's lives. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. Give me one moment.
Priority for public comment will be given to Fulton County citizens and those individuals representing businesses or organizations located within Fulton County. Speakers will be granted up to 2 minutes each. The public will not be allowed to yield or donate time to other speakers. The public portion of the meeting will not exceed 60 minutes. In the event the 60-minute time limit is reached prior to public comments being completed, public comment will be suspended and the business portion of the BOC meeting will commence. Public comment will resume at the end of the meeting. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, we will start with the speakers in Assembly Hall. We have received 10 speaker cards. Will the first 10 speakers please come forward? L.A. Pink, Sanai Hobson, Valerie Anderson, Margie McLeod, and Yafa Hutchinson.
All right, come on down, please, in that order. Again, we have 15 seconds. I'll say 15 seconds. You should begin to conclude your 2 minutes. First speaker.
Alrighty. We might as well just jump it off real smooth and quick. So I come down here, and I know this first half that I'm talking about is going to be taken care of, but I just wanted to address the community with it. I got a call last night from an elder in Grove Park, and she was telling me that they are trying to put a lien on her home for $23. This is what our elders are talking about when they're saying that they're trying to take their property, steal from them, the above. So I know Khadijah's gonna get that taken care of, her and her staff, because you always do when it comes to the things that need to be taken care of in your community. So I'm not worried about that, but I just wanted to bring that out because it needs to be addressed and be looked at in other communities if they're doing it to other people. So I really came here today because I wanted to address the situation. Yesterday was early voting, and of course there was a death in the jail again. I understand that you guys continuously to believe in this narcissist, continue to believe that he is going to, well, some of you, not all, let me clear that up, and the ones that believe in this narcissist.
And the narcissist she's speaking of is the sheriff. He's running for office, and she's asking them to write in a candidate who didn't make it on the ballot in time. But you'll hear a little bit about that in her 2 minutes. But I just wanted y'all to know who the narcissist was she was speaking of, and that's the sheriff. Labat, they call him.
Narcissist is going to be removed as well. But he, as I was saying, he had another death in the jail. I know that people have never seen what's about to happen as far as with the write-in, and that it is never going to take place. But if people understand what happened with the ark, they didn't think it was going to rain, but it rained. And this is what we're asking people to do. Since nobody have done an investigation, we are asking for everybody to do a write-in for Charles Rambo for sheriff. We need a new sheriff. This is just beginning to be ridiculous. A death every single day. Some we have no clue of what's going on. We need an investigation.
Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Valerie.
Come closer to the mic, man.
Good morning. That's better?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you. My name is Valerie Lange Anderson, and I'm here to talk about my son, Devon Anderson, that was murdered on August 5th. And I have not heard anything since August 5th, and I wanted to speak on this. The council cannot afford to be complicit and complacent, especially when they have the ability and responsibility to help remediate issues that directly impact families and communities. It is crucial that the council take decisive action where it can make a meaningful difference. Additionally, I went to the other side and want to thank them also, Councilman Lewis and Faroki, for their efforts in addressing my concerns and asking the difficult yet necessary questions, such as whether Melvin Potter is fit to serve as a police officer and an individual who took an oath to serve and protect. Melvin Potter has not been held accountable for anything he has done. How do Melvin Potter avoid getting his blood drawn from a judge? How did he get away with that? He's supposed to be able to do the law respectfully, as I would, as you would. Because if any one of you get a DUI, you all will be going to jail. Melvin Potter has not been held accountable at any time for the murder of my son.
15 seconds,
I do not know
ma'am.
up to this day what happened to my son. My son died senselessly at the hands of Melvin Potter, who is still collecting a check. Home. He's at home collecting a check. He shouldn't be collecting a
Morning, Sine Hobson. I honestly just have a few questions. How is it that when you become a police officer, there's training that you're supposed to take on a yearly or bi-yearly, correct? So how is it that on January 31st of this year, Melvin Potter had a de-escalating training that lasted 2 hours? How is it that February 19th of this year, he had a less lethal device training that was less than 3 hours? How is it that March 28th, 2024, he had firearms recall and use of deadly force training? And on August 5th, he failed to do any of that. He did not de-escalate any training or any situation. He did not use lesser lethal, his training for that, to use something less lethal to de-escalate a training. And then he used deadly force. Where's the training? Where is the, I'm going to take what I learned in a classroom setting and put that out in the street? Where is, how do I, what they just taught me a couple of months ago, that was a retraining, so you have learned it in the past. You're literally just doing a follow-up. You failed to utilize the information that you retained during these training sessions and put it out in the public. How is it that we have public servants who aren't utilizing the things that we are paying for as taxpayers within a county, and it's okay for him to go out and murder somebody and he's still collecting a paycheck from the city, sitting at home? And their excuse is, well, he doesn't have his gun or his badge, and yet he's still collecting a check. That's it.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Your city is crying out. Your city is hurt. Rent is constantly going up. Rob Hicks, I'm gonna put you on. I have a task force I want to put you on, and also with the mayor. Y'all must go to the governor and talk to the governor that we need this ban to be lifted up, because he has the power. If he could do the gas, he could do this. Unban rent control. We got to have rent control. Even Maggie saw my shirt. She said, I like this shirt. But this shirt is a movement. We have to get a cap on the rent. We have to. Now, what happened, House Bill 404, it made it worse, because now they could get people out of apartments in 7 days. And Kirk keep coming down here asking y'all for funding. We need this funding. She need help for eviction. Y'all not giving her funding. But these people here, this young lady gonna talk to you, and she gonna tell you, they're telling her 7 days that she have to leave. She homeless now. She homeless because of this House Bill 404. It must be amended. And constantly, I'm gonna be here. A lot of people, homeless is not getting no better. It's getting worse, because now the hotels increasing their rent in their hotels now. Because look at Florida's in here. Now the people who've been staying in the hotels for 6 and 7 months, they're going up on the rent. They're going up on their prices.
15 seconds.
So what I'm saying, Rob Pitts and your mayor, you're my task force. I want you to go to the governor and talk to the governor, because y'all got to have communication. Let him know what's happened to your city. That this.
And it's unfortunate that they don't allow but 2 minutes. And I guess if they allowed any longer, maybe the meeting would never end. But it's just really, to me, terrible how they do these people, and incorrigible how they, don't allow them to speak. Some may tune in and say, what does this have to do with the outlaw DAs? It has a lot to do with the Atlanta outlaw politicians, because these people are elected officials that get annually a budget, and that budget, they say, is based on their need until they get the monies, and then the needs are not there. And there we have two commissioners missing from their seats at this stage, when their constituents, the people that voted them in office, are speaking, crying out, as the young lady said, to the city, crying out for help. And they're not even there. For whatever reason, they're not there. The presence, you can see it. And I know that they felt the loss of them. But let's continue, because like I said, we're not going to look at the whole thing. I just kind of want y'all to hear some of the people and some of the issues that they bring before the board when they come before the board.
Next 5 speakers, please come forward. Prophet Curtis Martin Hairston, Adam Stephen Whiteley, John T. Fisher, Janet Hill, and Devin Barrington Ward.
Good morning, everyone. I'm a mother of 10. They gave me 7 days to move out. I've been on Section 8 for 6 years. I'm also a cancer patient. They moved me in this home that was not livable. I was living in feces and everything coming up through the basement. It caused me to get sick, as I'm sick as of now. I got bit by a spider. And the landlord came in and took me to court because I called down to Section 8, and they came out and inspected, and it fell. And it fell twice. And after it fell twice, then I had to go to court again. And when I went to court, they gave me 7 days. And right now, me and my kids are homeless because all this has been going on. And I have pictures in my phone. I have called code enforcement. They failed it. The home was not livable from day one. But Section 8 allowed me to move in there. I have pictures and everything. I have called down here. I have went over there to your office, Rod Pitts, and I also left some Nuvas a message to your secretary. They never respond back. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, the water situation, I mean, it's so overbearing. Like I said, when he moved me in, he was using someone else's water, and the water was $10,000. It had a blockage on it. So when I began to transfer my thing over, they wouldn't allow me because it went in collection. Anytime a bill go in collection, before you get ready to put it in the house, the person have to pay it off.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
And that man, Mr. Pitts, who's the chairman, this one here, I used to really think that he cared, but he sounds like, if you people don't hurry up and get out of here, I am sick of y'all. And that's just one woman's opinion. That young lady said she had 10 children and she's suffering from cancer. And she's been evicted and with nowhere to go on Section 8. And so if you live in an urban city, then you're familiar with Section 8, not by way of you being on it. Maybe you have not, but certainly you know somebody that's on Section 8. And all you have to do is look at social media now, and you'll see all types of people that have problems with Section 8. That's throughout the United States. It's just not limited to Fulton County. But what they're doing is bringing their issues to the commissioners who issues the funding for different entities that's supposed to be able to assist the people that vote them in office. And much of the time, help is just not there.
She needs your assistance.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Gary Eichlet. I am here to talk about cuts recently made to Common Courtesy Transportation, which is a senior transportation system. I live in a HUD-financed senior apartment complex. These cuts have prevented us from going to see our doctors enough during the month. I've had to cancel 2 appointments because I'll be over my visits. And I am speaking for residents that live in several of these facilities. Nobody was contacted before any action was taken by the board on this procedure. Also, I have been trying to get a hold of my county commissioner for over a month. Maybe you could give me an insight how to get in touch with her. It's very important to us to have our transportation. Seniors need their independence. By limiting our independence, it's an increase in depression, isolation, and dementia, because we really need this addressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, amen. Happy New Year to everybody. No, I'm joking. Well, again, homelessness in Atlanta, Georgia, Fulton County, and DeKalb County, because they're all connected. Now, there's still people dying on our streets, freezing to death. 19 folk froze to death. 2 people froze to death in front of Gateway. 2 people froze to death in front of Gateway. Gateway is a shelter. So we should not send money back that could help homeless people. Now, I want to know, why would a cop kill a boy at a cop party? Because this stuff is getting way out of hand. See, that's how riots get started. See, I'm a prophet of God, see. And you don't want another riot. But that's how riots get started. Because when people run up in banks and police, I watched the riot. Folk were going up in banks and the police was there. And the police did nothing because there was a riot. See, these are the things that y'all don't understand. Y'all as in community. Maybe we need a new commissioner. Maybe we need a new sheriff. Maybe we need a new governor. Maybe we need new people. People are upset. People are afraid. Elders are afraid. You hear what this man just said? I'm talking to elders in their apartments, and they're scared to come outside. Now, you can't hit my auntie. You can't threaten my grandma. Now, y'all do the math, right? People are dying underneath your bridges.
All right, 15 seconds.
Fulton County. It's Fulton County. It ain't Atlanta County. It's Atlanta City. Don't start no riot.
So-called Fulton County Commission. I'll address you personally. Bridget, Khadijah, Dana, Rob, Natalie, Bob, Marvin. I'm here on behalf of the Justice for Devon Anderson campaign as well. Let me tell you what people with intelligence, courage, integrity, and honor understand. The people that enforce the law should follow the law. And people who are in charge of a county and in charge of the district attorney who files charges or not, should not allow people who are admitted by the GBI, the people you're waiting for some investigation for. The GBI has already said Melvin Potter killed Devon Anderson. So you have a killer just sitting free. You know exactly where he is, sitting at home. You know exactly he's getting paid still by the Atlanta Police Department. And it's, you know, it happened in your district, Marvin, right? So I'm confused. Number one, what are you doing to try and hold GBI accountable? It's come to my attention, GBI has waited as long as 6 months to file investigations and longer. Do you intend to sit by for 4 more months while a killer sits at home employed by the Atlanta Police Department? Or my other question for all of you is, why are you so untroubled by your lack of honor, by your lack of integrity, by your lack of transparency, Bridget, by your lack of upholding the rule of law in your county? Now, I understand as commissioners, you know, you are not all powerful people. I understand that you are enmeshed with very powerful forces, the police foundation, the police union, all up into the military industrial. I understand it's a lot, okay? And so I'm not here to say I'm any better than any of you. I take it as my personal responsibility to ensure that we live in a world where, again, the people who enforce law follow the law, and people who are allegedly supposed to keep us and our community safe actually
15
do so,
seconds.
and those like you who are supposed to hold them accountable and issue arrest warrants for killers, that you'll do so. And I encourage you to find some honor and stand up with those of us who are sick of this kind of thing. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm here again to demand a resolution to deed fraud. You are all public servants, and that is your job. On August 27, 2024, Shay Alexander confirmed that there is no internal process or procedure for filing deeds. I'll say it again. There is no formal internal process or procedure for filing deeds. No wonder we have deed fraud so rampant in Fulton County. September 20th, 2024, Shay Alexander filed an order from the federal court over a year old into the magistrate court. We have judges Nancy Ma and Rachel Krause filing false records into the court records for $746,000 cash transactions that appear nowhere in the revenue system for Fulton County or the IRS. We are funding these convicted and admitted criminals with our tax dollars. We respectfully demand an end to this deed fraud, correction to the land records, and recovery of lost revenue to Fulton County, the IRS, and for prosecution.
I can go ahead. All right, good. Good morning. John Fisher here, Presidential Task Force on Financial Fraud. Now, I'm going to talk to you about what this whole commission is about. It's about money, okay? Now, Ms. Hill just got through telling that, and here's what I'm talking about. When people illegally foreclose on these houses, and these companies claim that they bought the house, they don't file into the courthouse records. And the reason why I'm telling you about it is the same thing happened in New York. New York discovered that they missed $2 billion in 1 year because these companies do not file the fees into the courthouse. The people that were foreclosed on, names are still on the record 4, 5, 6 years later saying that they still own the house. But you've got these fraudulent companies coming in, violating 15 United States Code 1692 E and F, filing false documentation and claims that they bought these houses at foreclosures, which they never did. Okay, now, what you do is when you file into the process, they never file into the courthouse paying the fees saying that they bought these houses because it is a crime to file false documentation. And that's actually what's going on. I got to file this high at home. I've been working with the President's Task Force since 2011 in the process. You're losing money. It's just that simple. You are losing money. This whole commission is what the reason you're up here is about money. That's why you're here. You need to check into your own coffers and see what's happening. See who's got the money in their pocket. That's what you need to do, the process. Now, I've been at this again, like I said, since 2009. And you need to check and find out what's going on in your coffers, what's going on. You will find that to the point that you are being robbed. Also by the same people you got sitting on your benches and everything.
15
I got
seconds.
12 seconds. I'm gone. But like I said, we are monitoring this process. You're losing money.
Okay, and we'll stop that right there so that you all can get a greater understanding of why this is so important for people to do. And there's strength in numbers. It would be good if we could just get the people to fill up those chambers like they do the stadiums when they attend the football games or any sports arena or any concert or wrestling match or whatever it is that tickles your fancy. If we could just get people involved, it would make such a big difference. And I know many don't believe that because everybody is caught up on this race deal, like racism, but there's no such thing, people. It's called hegemony, and it's one group dominating over another group. It has to do with status and class and how you're viewed, where you live, your zip code. And that's throughout the United States, not just here. It's everywhere. So now that we understand it's about money, I'm going to take you all back to the commissioner's hearings with, actually it wasn't the commissioners, it's the Senate hearings, when my shero, Ashley Merchant, had an opportunity to speak with them. And this is kind of like when I think now the Young Thug trial been going on way before I ever tuned in, but I think this is kind of like when it jumped off when Ashley Merchant was fighting for her client, Mr. I think his name is Michael Roman, in the Donald Trump RICO charges, and they were discovering that she was having this ungodly, unruly, and ruthless relationship with Nathan Wade. And she was telling how she came about that knowledge, but it's about, if you hear it, she was trying to get open records information that she's still trying to get through a lawsuit. And we'll hear from that guy that's so disrespectful to her, Dexter Bonds, I think is his name, Bonds, Bonds, and how disrespectful he is to herself, the bench, and everyone that's in the courtroom. But now let's go to Ashley Merchant testifying.
So disputed. As to when it began, but it's acknowledged that they had I don't know if they still do, but at least had a romantic relationship.
Yes, that's
How'd you figure that out? How'd you find out?
So at first, I knew Mr. Wade and I knew Miss Willis, and a lot of people in the community were a little surprised to see Nathan, Mr. Wade handling this case. It was just, a lot of people said that, and so a lot of people were talking about that, and just, it was kind of surprising, because it's not really, you know, he does a lot of law practice, but this isn't what you would imagine him doing.
Did you ever see him have other billings? I mean, how do you have time to represent anybody else when he's billing, 24 hours a day to Fulton County.
He had other people working for him. Like, he had a law student working for him for a while, and then he had a first-year associate. So I'm assuming that they would probably do whatever other work he had.
Did you ever look at his calendar? Did you have access to that to see if it matched up?
No, I didn't have access to his calendar, and I didn't have access to their like text messages. I mean, I was able to get get his geolocation data through subpoena, but the one thing that really struck me is if I was accused of something and I was saying I didn't do it, I would download my phone. They have a system, it's called Celebrate, and Fulton County pays for it, City of Atlanta pays for it. It's literally a system that you can hook your phone into. I have an investigator that has it, and I have my clients do it all the time. You hook your phone up and it can find deleted text, it can find everything. And you can limit it. You can say, I only want texts with this person. So, if I was being accused of having an affair with someone, and I said it didn't start until April, and someone else said it started in October, the easiest thing to do is to, download that phone. And for privacy concerns, you can file it under seal, but you could easily narrow it down and say, I want this timeline, I want all of our texts from, November 2021, and it would easily tell whether or not they were romantic in nature.
Before I leave the billing issues, did you ever compare Floyd and Cross's bills to Wade's to see if they were meeting together, like there was that meeting with teams or what? Were they billing for the same meetings as well?
So I looked at that. One thing is we don't have most of Floyd's. So Floyd has not billed in quite some time. So I didn't have his to compare, but I did look at Anna Cross's. The one day that I remember looking at was when they were in federal court to see, because so Ms. Cross was the one actually litigating in federal court. But Mr. Wade was sitting there with them at counsel table, and they both billed for that. I wanted to see if he billed for time that he was sitting in court waiting, because I know in Cobb County, for example, with appointed work, if we're sitting in court waiting, we can't bill unless we're actually doing something. Like, they won't pay for two people to sit there. And so I wanted to look at that. But they were both there in court that day.
What about the teams meeting where he billed for? Were either of them involved in that team, since they're also outside special counsel?
No, they were not. So all of those people were people who would not have itemized that.
Okay.
Employees.
Back to your uncovering the relationship.
Yes.
How did you figure it out?
So Terrence Bradley was Nathan Wade's law partner originally, and he was also his lawyer in the divorce. I did not at the time know that they had filed for divorce. I knew Nathan's wife. I knew both of them historically from Cobb County, and people knew them in Cobb County. Mr. Bradley actually called me after an article. We were looking into the financial irregularities. We're looking into how much money had been paid, because everybody in the case was kind of like, why do you have special counsel?
Case?
On this case, yeah. Like,
was
why
Bradley still a partner with Wade at that time?
He was not. There was testimony that their partnership ended in summer of 2023. So it had just ended, is my understanding. And it's, it's kind of unclear, like, what month. The testimony is very unclear as to when they actually, I have when they dissolved. I think it was September, but it's very unclear as to their partnership. And I will say their partnership was a loose partnership. They had a partnership with the bar, but they all had separate legal entities. So each of them were filed as the law office of Terrence Bradley, law office of Nathan Wade. They had some joint bank accounts, but then they had some separate bank accounts. So I don't really know the exact structure. It was a very loose type of organization. But they were working together. And so
it's very convoluted and very unorganized, just like we see with the district attorney's office. And by the way, she hired Nathan Wade and all of his friends that shared the law firm together. So let's keep listening.
Terrence actually called me. He had seen an article where I had done open records with another lawyer, Manny Aurora, and we had uncovered how much money everybody had made. The news had gotten wind of that, and I later learned that the news had open records to get all of my open records. So every time I would get something, the news would get it, because I wondered how that happened. But so that somebody published that, and I had done some more open records, and Miss Willis actually called Mr. Bradley when I did these open records and said, they're looking into us. And he called me because he was worried about it. And so we had a conversation, and he actually asked me, do I need a lawyer? what's going on? What are you investigating? What's the parameters of this? And we had a conversation. And I said, well, my interests are different than yours. I represent Mr. Roman, so I can't advise you. That would be a conflict. He asked if John, my husband, could, and I said, no, that's a conflict too. If you feel like you need somebody, you need to talk to someone else. At the time, that was early in September. I had court in Cobb County, and I ran into Mr. Bradley. I was in Judge Harris's courtroom. I think it was either September 11th or 13th. I checked my calendar a week or so ago, but it was one of those dates. And I was taking a plea in front of Judge Harris, and Mr. Bradley was also there. Another lawyer who ultimately represented Mr. Bradley at our hearing, B.C. Chopra, he was there in court also. And then a friend of all of ours, who's a district attorney, his name is Bert Cohen, he was taking the plea with me. And Bert and I have known each other for a long time. Terrence, BC, everybody's known each other for a long time. We were all sitting in a conference room attached to that courtroom, waiting for the pleas, chit-chatting, took the plea, went back in, and Mr. Bradley essentially went through the whole thing and said, well, this is what's really happening. I had a notepad, and I took notes on all the things to ask for open records.
So what did he say was really happening when he said this is what's happening?
He said that they met at a judicial conference before, he was very specific that it was before she became DA, because that was one of the things that he couldn't remember when the judicial conference was, but he knew that it was before she became DA.
When did she become DA?
She became DA in, it would have been January 2021.
Okay.
So she became DA January 1st, 2021, but she had a transition team leading up to that. So, and Mr. Wade was in charge of her transition team. So Mr. Bradley told me all of that. We met for about an hour. Said that they had been together. They met at this conference. Nathan was still married, and Mr. Bradley was upset because of what happened in the divorce. He was upset because they were still married, the Wades were still married, and he essentially just left her after meeting Miss Willis and dropping the kids off at college. So.
And Bradley was Wade's attorney in that divorce action you're talking about? Okay.
Yes, I didn't know that at the time.
But they were law partners.
They had been, yes. Okay. And I actually don't know if he was still his attorney when he talked to me. I don't know if he was or not.
Right.
Because at some point, Mr. Wade represented himself, and then he hired a different lawyer. So I didn't know anything about the divorce at that time.
So Bradley did not like the way Wade had treated his wife?
He did not.
But he represented it?
He did not like the way he had treated his wife. He didn't like what was happening in the divorce proceeding, yes. Okay. And, I remember specifically him saying, I handle my business, things like that. Like, that I don't leave my wife without alimony. Because this, and we talked about it. Miss Wade had been a stay-at-home mom for, they'd been married almost 30 years. And literally it was right after they dropped their youngest off at college that he said, move out, And so we went through, I was obviously interested in, wait, what's happening? Walk me through this. And so he was telling me about the access cards, that Mr. Wade had access cards, telling me about the contracts, told me about their contract, that they had that Nathan had brought them the contract for the first appearance hearings. They had a contract for that. We didn't talk about that yet. That they had the contract for the taint work, and then ultimately that Nathan was hired as the attorney on this case. That they had been dating before, and he told me, they met at hotels. He would go to her place. And I remember him saying, you need to find her bestie who they had a falling out. That's the person whose condo it was that they would meet at. And
did you later determine who that bestie was?
Yes, it was Robin Yeardy. It was not until sometime later that I determined that. It was very difficult to determine who that was because he did not remember her name. But
he knew her by sight?
He did.
Did he later confirm to you or identify who she was?
Yes. So I had sent him a couple pictures, or showed him a couple pictures of some other folks.
This was in January of 24, right before your motion?
It was. It may have even been after I filed the motion. It was around the time. It was either before or around the time, but it was in January. I had gotten some open records requests from the DA's office. They had a contract. Yep.
We just put on screen some of the text messages that you produced to us.
Yes.
This is from your phone.
It is. And
you're talking to Terrence Bradley, I see over there on the left.
Yes, and so when you see on the 14th, that one that's right in the middle that says file attachment with MIME type, that is a picture of her. So it doesn't show up on this, but it's actually, there's a picture of
So
Miss
while
Yeardy.
you're texting, you're shooting him a picture to see if he can identify Robin Yeardy.
Yes, yes.
Did he
And
identify him?
he did, yes. He said, yes, that's her, that's the East Point. And he thought the apartment was in East Point. I later found out it was in Hapeville, but those are very
Right.
close in close areas.
So he knew they would meet at that apartment?
He did, yes. He knew all
Okay.
about it. And it was hard to find Miss Yeardy. What happened, and she was Robin Bryant, and then she got married and was Yeardy. I did an open records request for a contract that the DA's office got. It's called Critical Mention. She has I guess he's an attorney, but he's sort of in charge of communications. His name is Jeff DeSantis. Right after Miss Willis had opened the investigation in this case, that same week, he contracted a company called Critical Mention, which is a media monitoring company. They put a dollar figure basically on your media presence.
And that critical mentions is really what's causing the problem over in the hearing with Dexter Bonds, as we will hear a little bit later. You cannot even critically mention critical mentions because you will, well, we'll see later how you get treated.
And they give you these analytical reports, and they say, hey, you did great on MSNBC. That's $1 million worth of, stuff for your brand. The Fani Willis brand is doing well, or this phrase is doing well, things like that.
She had an employee in her office that was responsible for promoting her image, for publicity.
She had a publicly funded contract for this. So Jeff DeSantis contracted or called this company, and it's in the emails. I think I provided those as well, but contacted Critical Mention and said, we need to hire you to do media monitoring. And it was the same week that she had sent the letter to Raffensperger and Kemp about this case. Said, we need to have a contract to do media monitoring. Got $10,000 approved, paid $10,000 for a year contract for an annual contract.
Who approved that?
Jeff DeSantis' email said the county approved it, and his emails indicated that it was hard to get approved, that he had to really push, I think is what he said. There's some language to that, but the county paid for it.
Do other DAs do that?
I'd never even heard of media monitoring. I didn't even know it existed. No. It was very shocking. But so I got some of the emails about this media monitoring. So I did open records, and again, once I got them, they shut me down and wouldn't give me anything else. But so these emails have attachments, they're PDFs, and you can see in the emails the hyperlink to them where you can actually see the analytical reports. That's what I wanted to get, and obviously nobody would give those to me. But these emails showed a trail where two people in her office, so Miss Willis, Mr. DeSantis, and then Robin Yeardy, were the ones that had access to this critical mention profile. It's a platform that you can log into and see, how am I doing in the media.
What was Robin Yeardy's role in the DA's office?
She was a liaison between the news.
Now, somebody tell me, what does that have to do with hiring attorneys to help get some of those people that's been locked away for more than 60, 90, 120, 180 days and further? They had one guy that was locked up in one of the counties. I don't believe it was Fulton County. It was a neighboring county for 10 years who had never seen a judge. A lot of these people, what's happening to them is, you treat them like animals, then they become animals. And that's the way they treat humans once they incarcerate them. And it's very sad because the facilities that they're willing to spend all this money to keep these people locked up are not fit to live in by humans. But it's necessary to go back and hear these type things, because I like to give a concept of what you're hearing and don't just rely on one thing. We gotta believe our eyes. Judge Millian used to say, I guess my lying eyes are deceiving me. But no, your eyes see what they see, but you also have an intuitive mind and sight, and that's your inner being that lets you know there's something just not right. I don't know what it is, but I know something, as Keith Sweat would say, something just ain't right. Let's finish listening.
News organizations. So she said that like when CNN, MSNBC wanted her on, they would call Robin and she would coordinate it. She would do her hair and makeup, and then she would coordinate her interviews. But so how I found Robin was I'm going through these emails, and all of a sudden I see an email from Mr. DeSantis saying, take Robin off of this account. She's no longer with the office. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that's her. And so I found a picture of her and I asked Terrence, is that her? Because I found out she had been fired or been let go or had quit or whatever it was. And so that's how I was able to figure out who Robin Yeardy was. Then we were able to run her, run her information, get an address. And that's how we were able to narrow down where this hateful condo was.
So that's where basically Miss Willis and Mr. Wade would meet
Yes.
for their relationship.
Yes. But Mr. Bradley told me at that first meeting that they would meet at hotels. He told me about a lot of travel. I mean, he detailed, he detailed a lot of stuff. He said that they traveled to Texas, they traveled to Florida, a lot of different travel. He said Belize, he specifically said Belize, a cruise, the Bahamas, things like that.
And you were later able to verify that through other subpoenas or open records requests or whatever?
Yes, I was. I was able to, I subpoenaed bank records, I subpoenaed credit card records, and then I actually subpoenaed the travel agencies that Mr. Wade used for some of those trips. He used, 2 of the cruises that they took, he used a travel agency. So there was a cruise to the Bahamas, I got through a travel agency. There was a trip to Aruba that I got through the travel agency. And then there was another cruise, I think that one's to the Bahamas also, that I got through a different travel agency. And then his credit cards are the ones that showed all the Belize trips.
And they showed that he was buying the tickets for both himself and Miss Willis?
Oh, yes, the credit card statements. So because I guess he used a travel agency, his credit card statements actually had her name and seat number and all that on it.
Okay.
So, I mean, there was no disputing.
And clear it was paid for by him on his credit cards?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Right. Is this the document you gave us from the Capital One there?
It is, yes. And there you can see, so Clara Bowman is Mr. Wade's mom. So this trip, this was the cruise that happened October 31st, around that date. Mr. Wade paid for Miss Willis, Mr. Wade, and then his mother's plane tickets, and then also their cruise receipt. I think that one was Royal Caribbean.
Okay. So your summary here showing the trips, we know that in late October they took a cruise to the Bahamas, and this is from his financial records. He paid for this for both tickets?
Yes, this is from his financial records, and I tried to be, there were a lot of Ubers and things like that. I did not include things like that, I wasn't positive. I wanted to be under-inclusive, not over-inclusive.
And then you show the trip to Aruba, another one to Bahamas, one to Belize, one to Napa Valley, California.
Yes.
These are all from October 22 up till May of 23.
Yes.
Okay. This is a document you produced us?
Yes.
This summary, is this something we prepared?
No, it's a summary.
Okay. And so you discovered that and verified its accuracy through these credit card receipts, et cetera?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Do either of them deny these trips occurred?
No, not at all.
And so is this the impropriety, the financial impropriety of getting financial benefit from the job that he's paying for her way on these trips with money
Yes.
that she's paying him and approving?
This is what I would call undisputed. Some of the other stuff on his credit cards, it looks like there's trips to Charlotte and Florida and other things like that. But this is what we could undisputed say was with Miss Willis.
So back to you're a good investigative reporter here. So you have heard these rumors, and now Mr. Bradley, just by almost happenstance, you're with him in court, and he spills the beans on it and verifies it. Then you go get the documents to prove it's accurate.
Yes.
And you identify Yearty, get him to say, yeah, that's the woman whose condominium they would go to?
Yes.
Okay.
And I developed it, you joke about my investigator skills. I've done public defense most of my career, at some point or another, or pro bono. It's hard to get money for investigators, so I've learned how to do a lot of it on my own. I dig a lot on things. So, and I do like to use the Open Records Act, so I was able to do that and get a lot of information.
And that's one thing that I would like for people to start understanding. When things are not going your way and you're dealing with companies, especially government entities, then you have the right to know their history or what's going on in a certain situation. And you should not be afraid to use that right and claim it and file it with the appropriate office. You got to have the appropriate place. And then your language should be that of whatever surrounds the law and whatever you're going through. Make them work together to your advantage. And I'm not an attorney. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a counsel or counselor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not any of those things. I'm not an accountant. But I've had a job that required me to do research. And once you start researching and start uncovering things, it's so intriguing until you don't want to stop. And you will keep going. But your first step has to be to get started.
But what I did was I compiled all of the information Mr. Bradley gave me, and then I did various open records requests based on it. And then, once I would get something, I would reach out to him to verify, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't tracking anything that was wrong.
Yeah.
I didn't want to make any allegations that didn't have support. So I would regularly verify with him. And I'd see him in court. We talked on the phone several times. I wasn't the only person that he told about this. There was another attorney on the case, Manny Aurora, who his client ultimately pled out. So he didn't continue this investigation, but he was involved in the investigation early on. And Mr. Bradley told him some of the same things that he told me. So, I was able to independently verify a lot of things, which to me, investigating is important. That the East Point location, that it was in Hateville. Robin Yeardy actually did quit. Mr. Bradley had told
Was
me
she
about...
forced to quit, or how'd that come about?
No, I don't believe she was forced to quit. That was a point of contention in our hearing. She said she left, that she was sent to another division. It's my understanding she had some, she was outspoken about she didn't like some of the things that was happening in that office. And when she voiced that, she was sent to a different department to work, and it wasn't something that she wanted to do because she did the communications, and so she quit after that, is my understanding.
Okay.
Based on her testimony and the allegations and all the pleadings.
All right, so after, I might be skipping parts of your investigation because it's pretty darn thorough, and you had gotten this Trackhawk, or Cell Hawk, what's it called, where you were tracking the
Yes.
location. You were mentioning to me earlier when I kind of got you off that employees can have it on their own phone if they want to, and she could have gone back and proven that they had not been communicating before he was hired.
Yes.
Okay.
So let me explain that, because there's two different systems, and I'm always learning new things about this, but cell phone data is one of the new things in criminal defense. We see it in a lot of cases. The CellHawk data that you just showed, that is geolocation data. That is different from the Cellbrite. So there's two different programs. CellHawk is the program that does geolocation data. Essentially what you do is you get all of the pings. So every time your phone, you see those cell phone towers everywhere. Every time you use your phone, it's trying to find the closest tower. So in a metro area like this, there's a lot of towers. That's why we get good signals. So when he's in Hateville, there's a lot of towers. So we can really, really narrow it down. So what we had our investigator do, and I'm only talking about the geolocation stuff, I'll talk about the text in a minute, but what we had our investigator do was narrow it down. We got all the raw data, and we had him narrow down, and we actually excluded a ton of things that were not right on top of this location. Like, we wanted to be very, very careful just to have what was literally right on top of this location. So he created a geolocation fence, which...
The location you're talking about is Miss Yeardy's condo?
Yes,
Okay.
It is Miss Yeardy's condo, that area. So he was able to find, essentially, just to summarize a couple of the things, where he, Mr. Wade would call Miss Willis at midnight, something like that. And then all of a sudden his phone would travel, and you can actually watch it. When you do the live CellHawk, the app, it's pretty cool. You can actually watch the phone travel, and it's pinging because you're using it. If you have an app open, your phone's pinging. So my phone's pinging right now because I'm sure I have an app open. So it's pinging from his house all the way down to the condo at midnight, 1 a.m. And he calls her when he gets there. And then it goes silent for 4 or 5 hours. And then, early in the morning hours, he starts pinging again, driving back, and then he texts her when he gets home. So,
and this is before he gets hired in November of 21?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and there's, there's a couple different ones, and I would defer to the experts on the CellHawk data, but that's the summaries based on what we had him do. And again, we tried to be very, very narrow. There were a lot of dates that it looked like it had happened also, but, maybe he was bouncing off a different location, and so we wanted to be very narrow.
So is that why y'all asked him in the hearing, how many times had you been to this look? I mean, you already kind of have the date on it.
Well, so that's an interesting point. All we have as defense lawyers is the right to subpoena evidence. I have to have an evidentiary hearing to do that. I could not issue a subpoena for AT&T for this evidence until I had a hearing date. So, and it takes a while to get this stuff. We got it that morning. So, the morning of the hearing, and obviously I'm kind of busy doing the hearing, we got that data. My paralegal was literally trying to download it for the investigator at the time and get it over. We knew we had the data, but we didn't know what it showed. So at that time, we didn't know, what it showed really until he was able to do the analysis. We had some preliminary reports from him, but nothing. I mean, it took a lot of hours. It's a lot of data. So it takes a lot of time to pinpoint this information. But the other thing that I was talking about, so this is the CellHawk report, and heat map is just like how many times it's pinging, heavy concentration is, you're talking a lot at this time, or you're at that location a lot. There's a lot of usage. The other thing I was talking about, just to make sure it's clear, so that's CellHawk. Cellbrite is a different program. Cellbrite, and it's CELLEBRITE. Cellbrite is a program similar to CellHawk, but it downloads data in the phone. So like this one is you pinging off of towers. It's geolocation.
Showing where you were.
Exactly.
At a certain time.
Cellbrite actually can get your texts, your pictures, your app usage, all of that stuff. So it's one of those things that if you want, if a defendant is threatening someone by text and they delete it, they'll take their phone and hook it up to Cellbrite. Cellbrite it makes what's called a forensic copy of the phone, but you can also limit the data. So it's very expensive program. So not a lot of people have it. So when I have my clients use it, it costs a lot of money for them to have it done. But the DA's office has it. They have the software. They pay for it. You can find that in their open checkbook. The city of Atlanta police have it as well. But what you can do is you can copy cell phone. So what I had mentioned earlier is
you have to have the cell phone to do that?
You do. You have to have the cell
So
phone.
what, did Mr. Bradley give you all his cell phone? Or
No.
how'd you get Mr. Wade's cell phone?
So we did not get that data from Mr. Wade. So we only got the geolocation data from Mr. Wade. I do not have the power to get the text messages. I don't have that power. I would have to have a search warrant. The state's the only one that has the power to actually get someone's text messages out of their phone. But my whole point in saying that was if I had been accused of having an affair and it didn't start, and I said it started in April and someone else said it started in November, they have the ability. I don't have the ability. They have the ability to plug that phone into the Cellbrite and print out a report. Thank you, Judge. How often did Mr. Wade visit?
Okay, so now we know how that all got started. So now we're going to come up moving forward with YSL. And this is showing where the judge gets mad at the prosecutors for being unprepared. One of the things that the judge accused them of is just throwing this case together as they go, because they hold nothing in honor. They don't keep up with the timelines, and in the court of law, if you miss a deadline, then you're out. That's it. Except for this situation, they make all kind of exceptions to the rule of law, and we don't comprehend it, but that's what they be doing all the time. So let's listen to Ms. Love here.
Excuse the witness.
Yeah, Mr. Smirker, you can go ahead and step outside for us. Thank you.
Your Honor, so
Yeah.
well, first of all, my motion is a motion for mistrial based on the actions of the prosecutor. My objection initially to the item was that it contained hearsay. The state represented at the bench that it was not hearsay. There was no hearsay contained in it. We did not address the issue of what the state already knew, which is that there was a phone number attached to it that she was going to try to elicit testimony from this witness about who that phone number belonged to. That in and of itself is speculation, but it's certainly hearsay. The document can't authenticate itself. I believe the site for that proposition is Twiggs versus State. It's 315 Georgia Appeals 191. So this witness can't look at a document and say that it says this phone number is from Justin Cobb's Instagram or social media posting, this is who it belongs to. So that was my objection. I believe the objection was well-founded. I believe the state purposely put that up there after misrepresenting as to whether or not it contained any hearsay in it. And based on that, I would move for mistrial.
May I respond?
You may.
Judge,
Can somebody put the document up? I don't want to.
yes.
Would you put it up?
First, the state objects to a mistrial. Second, Your Honor, what Mr. Adams indicated that he did not want on here were the comments with where's the phone number? There it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
the comments generally being all of the writing on the right side of the picture.
Your Honor,
And so I said to you, is any of it hearsay? Is any of it being offered for the truth? And you said, no.
Your Honor, what I was asking the witness to do is to tell what was of significance to that number and what he did in terms of finding out and corroborating information that he obtained, because he obtained phone records. I don't intend that this evidence or this exhibit will prove or show that this is Justin Cobb's phone number.
You're asking him that? And
No,
asking
Your
him
Honor,
to testify to that?
I'm asking him, and I understand the court, I'm asking him what handle it's next to, and Your Honor, what he did after seeing what he saw on this
That's
social
not what
media
you
page.
asked for. You represented at the bench that none of this, that being the writing on the right side of the picture, which we're all squinting at because it's tiny on the piece of paper. And so I am relying upon you to actually be honest with the court and opposing counsel so that we can deal appropriately with the evidentiary issue. Was any of it being offered for the truth? And you said no. And then you turned around, and after it was admitted over the overruling of the hearsay objection, based on the representation that nothing was being offered for its truth, you drew the witness's attention to the phone number and tried to have the witness testify to whose phone number it was. If that is not offered for the truth, what is it?
Your Honor, it
What is
explains what steps he next took. It wasn't that he sat there and took this phone number and said, okay, this is Justin Cobb's phone number. He went and sought records based on what he saw on this social media post. So it's not, this post can't prove anything, but I do expect that the witness will testify based on what he saw, regardless, because it's a legitimate.
Why can't you just, at the bench, when you know that the reason you're offering it is for the phone number, and then to ask the witness other questions about what he did based on that phone number and seeing that phone number, say to everybody so that we know what we're dealing with, you know, it's this phone number, and then I'm going to ask him XYZ about the phone number, and then we'll know what we're dealing with.
Because my understanding that what was being objected to was not the phone number, was the comments that was the words, Your Honor. And again, this piece of evidence does not prove anything, as anybody would be able to say. But when he saw this on Justin Cobb's page, or a picture of Justin Cobb next to what he believed to be Justin Cobb's handle. He sought additional information. The entire cross.
Remember one of the comments?
I'm sorry, what, Your Honor?
I mean, that is included within what you're now calling comments, all of them just being.
And I asked at the bench what comments they were asserting was hearsay, Your Honor. I literally asked it.
I asked at the bench, is any of this being offered for its truth?
And Your Honor, it's being offered to explain DDA Sprinkle's actions that he took next. Your Honor, these records have been collected as part of what he did in this investigation. He was asked on cross-examination, did he take particular steps to corroborate what was given to him in certain interviews? That was the preceding question before I asked him about this particular post. So the state intended and intends to introduce the records that DDA Sprinkle produced or obtained after seeing this post. This post can't suffice to prove that that is Justin Cobb's number. This post only explains why DDA Sprinkle got the number and why it was significant to him in this investigation, where his steps and actions are being questioned.
But you know, Judge, we don't get there. I hear what the state's saying, and it's disingenuous because we don't get to the second step that they're talking about, what records he procured and why he did what he did, unless we go through the hearsay statement that's contained in the portion that I objected to. And the court is accurate. I was there and I asked for everything that was on the right side, all of the verbiage to be, I said that was hearsay. The state said it was not. It clearly is, because to ask him that specific question, I mean, listen, none of us are obtuse. Here. It is what it is. I think that the state was disingenuous about it. The state's being very slippery in regards to their response to the court's questions. I think it's willful, and I think a mistrial is appropriate. And I'm asking.
I can't figure out what it is. If it's disingenuous, if it is that, I mean, I don't want to malign the prosecutor standing in front of me right now, so I'm not going to say the possible things that it could be, but it is baffling to me that somebody with the number of years of experience that you have, time after time after time, continues to seemingly purposefully hide the ball to the extent you possibly can for as long as you possibly can. And I really don't want to believe that it is purposeful. But honestly, after a certain number of times, you start to wonder how it could be anything but that, unless it is just that you are so unorganized that you are throwing this case together as you try it. And I am sorry to say that. But this case is being made much more difficult for everybody because of the haphazard way in which it is being presented. I'm going to take a recess for a few minutes. I'll have a ruling when I get back. So could you share with us all of the whatever parts you think actually you would like to have admitted and published?
Yes.
And can you do that from now on without me having to beg you to do that?
Your Honor, the court does not have to beg me for anything.
Okay, I mean, let's just have it be sort of a standard, which I thought would have been clear anyway, but is apparently not, that you make it clear to everybody what parts of what exhibits you want in evidence so that we can then, if there are evidentiary challenges to them, be able to sensibly discuss those. Is that something you can do for the court and for the opposing counsel in this case?
Absolutely.
Okay. So can you right now let us know so that while we're having our half hour, we can take a look at all of that?
Sure can, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And the objections, as stated already, generally, where hearsay, confrontation clause, and authentication, there's not going to be a confrontation clause issue. People's Twitter posts are not testimonial. But with regard to authentication and hearsay, I don't know if
He can set the foundation and he can
authenticate these.
I believe that.
Okay,
we can-
maybe. All right. And then there may, okay, so let us know. How are you gonna let us know that? Because can you email to everybody the portions, or how are we gonna?
I can give you the specific page numbers.
Okay, and everybody else has a copy?
Everybody has this. Yes. When you say everybody else has a copy, I'm not sure what the court means.
If you give page numbers, they have a copy so that they'll be able to easily find and look at what that is?
If they look at the
Do
that
you
they
remember?
have.
They have a link. Do you remember which link it is?
Yeah.
Can you let us know that, or at least them know that?
I'll just yes, I can.
Resending it would be great, and then pinpointing.
And perhaps telling us where it is in the discovery.
No, she's going to resend it, which would be easier.
Okay.
Okay, so you will do that and be specific about what parts you want in. All right, Mr. Shart, you had asked in the midst kind of all of the objections that the court give an instruction about the blank box. Is that something that you still want me to do, that the box was blank at the court's instruction because we didn't at that point have anything establishing the date, or?
Yes, I would very much appreciate the court giving
Okay.
that instruction.
And that was
because
states 44, not states, I'm sorry, Mr. Stillwell 44.
I believe that's correct.
Okay.
I can check. I'll approach and look at the evidence and confirm.
Okay, and so I'll just tell them that it was at the court's direction that the box was blank because it hadn't at the time been established what the box meant.
Your Honor.
Will
may I-
that work? Yes, no?
Yes, that would
Okay.
be great. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, that requirement of the court was not on the defendants. They objected to that box being shown. The state had no objection. So in as much as the objection leveled by Mr. Stillwell is what the court based that on, and the state did not have an objection, and the state actually explained what it was, and Mr. Stillwell could have very well put that date in the box.
No, Mr. Stillwell could not have at that point. There was an objection to it. I will give that instruction, and I'm also going to instruct that the state may not in any way attempt to argue that Mr. Stillwell was trying to hide anything by having that box on there blank. Understand? And I'm not saying you would, but just want to make that clear. Understand?
I think, yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, I would also,
The judge ain't playing no games when she say understand. That's the authority that she has coming through, and that little brazen love. I think she felt the pinch, the sting of that. Understand.
let's see. So we're going to deal with the Twitter feed issues and the reconsideration of Zachary's things. Anything else?
The additional crime scene photos
Your Honor,
from Mr. Atkins.
I don't know if we'll get to that or not. When
Okay.
when would that be coming in?
Not it.
Your Honor, those probably won't even come in until the next week or the week after
Well, they
next.
may not be
depending.
coming in at all.
Well,
but-
if they are to come in, it would be in about 2 weeks from now.
Okay, and it was so like you said, or somebody said that the CADs with regard to those had already come in. Can y'all be a little more specific about what those are going to be crime scene photos of? And why, like what crime scenes and why? I know Miss Love, you said, oh, you put them back because of witnesses that you had to add back in. Can you give me a little more specificity about the?
So at the begin, you want to know the actual
Crime scenes.
Okay.
And then why did you have to add those witnesses back in?
Well, the why was when counsel for.
Was it because you were establishing who lived at places and they were gonna object unless you brought the person in?
That was half of it. The other
Okay.
half was that they objected to any of the
Chain of custody, I remember.
right.
Anything
right.
beyond that?
Yes. So I'm pulling up the actual incident number.
I mean, if you want to just give me an address, like the so-and-so crime scene.
But these photos, Your Honor, were not produced in discovery.
I
No.
understand.
Okay.
I'm
thank
going to get to that. I'm just trying to get a little bit of basis for what we're even talking about.
So it was 717 Cedar Avenue. I don't have the date on that in front of me.
Well, one was 2014, one was 2015, one was 2019, as I understand it. Which was that?
That was 2014.
Okay.
And that was based on an objection about the kniving hits. And then there was the 807 Prior and 193 Hendricks shooting, which I think was that was in 2015. That was one of the retaliatory shootings. And then there was the 2019 one regarding Milton Howard in Rayshawn Lucci Bennett's vehicle.
Where?
On the road. It was, the specific address was.
She said on the road. Let's just show you how funny this case really is. And it's really not funny because these young men's lives are at stake, especially their freedom. But even lives, you could say, going into any one of the facilities there in Atlanta or throughout the state of Georgia. But this lady said in the street.
This is something there was just testimony about last week. Yes, no?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I thought you. That was rhetorical.
Okay, well.
I don't know if y'all caught the look that the judge gave them right before she said that, okay. You know, she's waiting and waiting and doing everything she can do. But, you know, it's some things, as I call the you factor, that only you can do. And only they can answer these questions that she posed to them. And they don't have a clue. Hilton is over there, look like she's trying to look up case law or something. And Love, I don't know what she's doing. She's probably ordering Avon or something. But it doesn't seem that they're in tune with this case or trying to, present a case that's winnable. And that's what a prosecutor's job is. In the interest of justice, it's supposed to seek justice. Meaning, if you did something wrong, then you are going to pay for that in whatever is given by the law. These people, I don't know what they're doing. Honestly, I don't.
In any event, you say you added witnesses back because of needing to establish who lived where and the chain of custody, I guess, for like bullets and shells and things like that. But if the photos themselves were never provided, which is what Mr. Adkins represented in his email, then why should they come in now?
Your Honor, so as it relates to the scene, we believe that it's relevant information that does not unfairly prejudice anyone, as the incidents themselves are very much a part of the discovery that we've provided.
But the crime scene photos aren't, right?
Your Honor, I believe I believe that they have not, but I will make certain that they've not. I believe that they have not.
Well, Mr. Adkins represented that they...
Before she answered that question, the question that the judge posed, it seemed like she wanted to say, good question.
They hadn't.
And I have no reason not
Okay,
to
so you check on that in our 30 minutes or so that we're going to have, and you can let me know. All right, let's be back here at 1:20.
Your Honor,
Yes.
I know that Mr. Sprinkle had no more questions on direct by the state, so I will put in writing. He mentioned some phone calls, jail calls. The state mentioned with him, but they didn't put them in. I have some objections to portions of those jail calls, and I'll put it in writing for everybody. But I just wanted to make the court aware, just in case the state wants to, on redirect, somehow get into those jail calls.
Yeah, are you going to get into the substance of jail calls with Mr. Sprinkle?
Not today, no.
Okay. Ever with Mr. Sprinkle?
At some point, yes, after we get other, yes.
Okay, then, yep, go ahead and put those objections in writing.
I'll do it.
And one more thing, Mr. Steele, you sent over an email sort of setting forth an objection or a continuing objection, I guess, that you have to the testimony of Mr. Sprinkle about his investigation, and you base it on Davis versus State, 307 Georgia 746 from 2020, and also Adkins v. State, 301 Georgia 153 from 2017, and the law that's set forth in those about conduct of an investigation, an officer not normally, only in rare instances being relevant, but that it is relevant after, or its case law appears to acknowledge that it can be relevant after a defense has raised questions about an investigation. And yet you're saying at the same time that your co-counsel is asking Mr. Sprinkle questions about his investigation that you don't believe that it is relevant here because the defense hasn't challenged Mr. Sprinkle specifically. And that is, I appreciate that nuance, but my original ruling on that stands. So I'm going to overrule your objection. You may have a continuing objection to that. All right. See y'all back at 1:20.
Just for you to know, we speak with independent crime scene people. So the state just giving us this, these photographs, and then we have to review the evidence and then go talk to the witness. It's a hassle.
So if she lets me know that these were originally provided, that's one thing. But if they were not, then they're not going to be coming in. All right. See y'all in 30 minutes.
Your Honor, may we excuse the witness?
Yeah, Mr. Sprinkle, you can go ahead.
Okay, we're going to get ready now to go back to this weirdo, Mr. Buns, and I'm calling him a weirdo for the lack of a better word. But I did want to be descriptive when I called him. But we want to go back to the bad behavior, I should say. Unprofessional. Unscrupulous. I don't know. Uncouth. Mr. Bond. And this is in his testimony in the open records. We started looking at it the other day, and we looked at a lot of it, but this is some, and we may not listen to the full ending of this, but I just want to give y'all some moments of this man's behavior, his body language. I want you to see the jerking and the working of the neck and the way he's always repeating. And we know that that's a tactic. And, you know, for clarity's sake, you should always repeat. But we know in the way that he's repeating is buying time and giving him something to think about, because his answers really were not answers. They just didn't make sense. So, here we go.
You ask, based on this search, you will look and you will reach out to Jeff DeSantis. Hey, do you have any emails related to critical mention? After that, you will go to the IT department to confirm.
Okay.
See if there are any responsive records.
Fulton County IT department.
Yes.
Okay. So Jeff DeSantis and Fulton County IT are the two. Okay.
Especially when you ask it for emails, the answer is yes.
But you don't know if you did that in this case.
I know that I did that in critical mention. I have 1,000 cases. So as it relates to this specific request, I cannot tell you that this particular case was elevated and this was on the top of my list.
And once someone makes a request like this, what steps do you take to ensure that the documents they're requesting are preserved?
Repeat that?
When someone makes a records request like this, as an example, what steps do you take as the records custodian to ensure that the documents they're requesting are preserved?
They are placed in a portal. Once the portal is sent to you, I think that you have access to that, and I think that that is something that the portal does and make sure that it is reserved. And I can have a copy if I needed to go back to those specific documents. So as it relates to you, this is when you and I are going to make sure we're not splitting the baby. But as it relates to the portal, they are reserved.
Okay. And we'll use this as an example and sort of walk through the request. So once you get a request like this, whether it's elevated or not, what are the steps your office takes to make sure that the documents I'm requesting aren't destroyed?
Typically, once documents that you're requesting that are placed in the portal, right, will maintain those particular documents, right? You have an email version, electronic file of those versions, so that's in the portal. So and maybe I wasn't clear. So you're telling me how you maintain the documents you give me. What I'm asking you is when I ask for critical mention documents here, okay, and
you get this request and you give me some of them, how do you make sure that they're all maintained?
So-
Where do you all maintain them?
I'm gonna answer your question, and I'm gonna make an assumption if I may, okay? I made a comment and I said that there was 40 open records requests. You looked and it appeared, assumption, emphasis on assumption that you was gonna go see how many open records requests you had,
Right,
right?
it's all there.
Yeah. So the answer to your question is, it's in the portal, it's all there.
No, that's why I didn't know if you understood my question. My question is not.
I
how
just
do you
repeated
preserve
you.
your response?
Hang on, don't talk over each other because the court reporter can't take it down.
My apologies.
That's okay. Ask your question and then you are free to respond in any way you wish.
I'm not asking how you preserve what you tell me you have. What I'm asking is how you preserve the documents inside of your office that I request. Not the ones you give me, but the ones I've asked for.
If you ask for 5 invoices, right? I'll take those 5 invoices. Those 5 invoices is given to a staff member to provide to you. So the original copy of those invoices maintain wherever they are, right? You have a copy that's filed electronically, right? It is given into the portal. So if I understand your question correctly, 5 invoices. The 5 of those invoices are sent to someone on my staff. A copy of those invoices are uploaded to the portal. Those 5 invoices, the original copies, wherever you came from, continue to stay there. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
So the originals continue to remain wherever they originally were.
It depends on the particular document. If you, in my example, I gave you invoices.
Right.
We do know that invoices are electronic, right? Well, I like to think that most invoices are electronic. So in those particular invoices, wherever they are on my particular file, they stay. A copy is employed to my staff member and then uploaded to the portal.
And let's go through some specific things that you gave me, and then we can sort of go back to that question because it might help.
Okay.
If you look, let's see, if you can pull up Merchant 0029, on January 18th, there was, let's see, I received this packet that we talked about of emails uploaded to the portal. What you're looking at is the beginning of that packet, and it was 44 pages. That was in response to my original request discussing critical mention. You said you did not produce this document, correct?
No, I don't believe so.
Did you assist in retrieving these documents?
For these particular documents, no. These documents appear to be responsive to your open records request. It appears to be delivered to you on January 18th, and it appears to be responsive to your request.
You can look at 0055. If you go down a little on this one, see where it's after Melissa Fritz, it says Fani Willis critical mention search. It's a different font, and then PR value for the week, and then there's a couple other things. This, and we now know, because we have the actual emails, we now know this is 4 or 5 different emails that were pieced together. Did you participate in the cutting and pasting of these documents into one?
Objection, Your
I
Honor.
don't.
Objection, Your Honor, presumes that he cut and paste documents, and that was never established by his testimony, so we're objecting to that.
Okay, well, for now, I'm going to sustain your objection to the characterization of the cutting and pasting, but you can certainly ask him if he participated in the creation or generation of this document that was produced to you, however it came to exist. So your objection is sustained to that extent, Ms. Monroe.
And Judge, I thought that was Mr. Bowman's witness. I might be mistaken, but I prefer not to text him.
Well, I do agree. I apologize. Who is going to be examining this witness?
I will.
Oh, okay. Well, then fair enough.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Well,
I mean,
Mr. Bowman had objected, so.
Yeah, generally speaking, you know, whoever's going to be examining the witness is the one who should be controlling the objections. And I think Ms. Merchant's expressed concern was she thought Mr. Bowman was going to question this witness, which would make your objection problematic. But since you're going to be examining the witness, it's fine.
That's fine.
I'll affirm for the Your Honor.
Well, usually I just ask that you whisper in your partner's ear so they can then say the thing that you want them to say.
And I showed Mr. Bowman the documents because he had made the first objection, so I just was assuming that was the path, but I will check. Okay, so this document, however it was created, did you assist in the creation of this page?
No, I think you and I agree that the first request was straightforward. I don't think that this was elevated to me. And on January 18th, no, it was not elevated to me.
Who compiled the document in the form that we see it in here today?
A member of my staff. That's an assumption. A member of my staff.
Okay, so you're assuming, but you don't know who compiled this.
Specifically,
yes.
On January 18th, yes, this is a designated employee, yes.
You're positive it's a designated employee?
Well, okay. Yes, I'm positive I know who that is.
Who is it?
Erica Willingham.
Erica Willingham. So Erica Willingham is who we would need to ask, not you as the records custodian, about how this document was created.
I cannot answer that question. Let me explain why, right? Typically, emails are compiled in a certain kind of way, right? And those emails are compiled by IT, by staff. It may be compiled by going to reach out to various different persons. I cannot speak to that, so I cannot tell you if she personally, if the question was, did she compile? I do not know. I do know that she handled it as a member of my staff. I do know that she responded as a member of my staff. I can tell you that.
So you can't say as the records custodian that this is an accurate copy of an original document. Let's put it that way. You really don't know anything about this document.
I do know something. I know it was responsive to your request. So yes, I know something. I think you and I can agree on that.
Okay. Let's take a look at, I'm going to jump out of order. I apologize. If you, let's see.
I also know, if I may, that it was provided to you on January 18th. I also know that you received this particular document on January 18th. I also know, as you mentioned, that there was a second critical mention document. And in that second critical mention, I know you referenced this before, right? I also know that once you referenced this before, you renewed a second critical mention document saying, hey, you gave me this on January 18th, I'm looking for A,
yes.
right?
And
that's why you and I on the same page, didn't want it to be global. So I do know information as it relates to this particular request.
And we can actually go there right now. So I filed a second request because my initial request was closed when you all provided this 44-page document, right?
Yes, on January 18th it was closed.
And so on January 18th, I refiled my request and I specifically referenced the original one and said, why are you closing this? You didn't give me everything.
If I can?
Yes.
I like the fact that you presented the first one and allowed me to read it. Can I read the second one?
Of course, it is, let's see. I don't have the number off. The second one is Merchant 0011. Might take a minute. Oh, doesn't take a minute. There we go. So this one I said in regards to my prior request, and I referenced that number we just talked about, and I said I requested the critical mention documents, and I say the number. I said I got a set of emails, but I asked for the analytics and the documents that are clearly referenced and attached to those emails. I said reports with analytics were provided to the DA's office monthly. It appears from the emails that Jeff DeSantis, Fani Willis, Jeremy Murray, Pallavi Perkasa, Robin Bryant, and Rita Kepler may all have access to these reports on a regular basis. They're public media, paid for by public funds and subject to open records.
Yes, I did receive that. This was elevated to me, and I did respond to you.
Okay, so this one was elevated to you, and you definitely did respond. Before we get there, let's talk about what we were just talking about a minute ago about the I don't want to use the word cut and paste, the document, and I'm going to call it Merchant 55, that appears to have a compilation of several other emails contained within it. Okay, that document we were looking at a minute before, and you said you don't know who prepared that document, right?
I do not know who compiled that. I know who handled the file. I know who sent you the responsive document.
And you don't know where that person got the responsive documents, but you assume it was Jeff DeSantis, is what you said earlier.
I did not say that, ma'am.
You said you would reach out to Jeff DeSantis in Fulton County IT.
But he certainly wouldn't compile any documents for me.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
So who would compile them? Who would, and let's just look then. So you've seen, and can you show him again, Merchant 0055, just take a look at this document, because I'm gonna ask you to compare it to a different one.
Okay.
So just to make sure I'm clear, I thought that Mr. Bond said that he believed that Erica Willingham is the person who compiled the response at Merchant 0055.
I thought he said that she did, but that she would reach out to Jeff DeSantis and the count. First, he said he didn't know who provided it. He said that they would reach out to Jeff DeSantis and Fulton County IT.
Well,
and then
that's
later,
actually why I'm asking for clarification, to make sure we're all having the same conversation, because I understood you to be asking him about who compiled the document that was provided to you, not who obtained the information that was then determined to be responsive and compiled into a document that was provided to you. What I understood Mr. Bond to be saying was, this type of request, I would have reached out to DeSantis and maybe County IT, and then it was compiled by this particular employee and provided to you.
okay. And I'm not sure. That's the ultimate question. So let me try and be a little more clear then. This document, number 55, okay? It looks as though it's a compilation of other emails, okay? If you look after Melissa Fritz's name, it says Fani Willis critical mention search, and then PR value for last week, and then there's that middle section that we're talking about, middle section right here. There's no header to from or dates here. There's no header to from dates here. There's no header to from dates there. That, they all look like different emails, right?
I would agree with you.
Okay, so not using the word cut and paste, someone took these parts and put them all in one.
Objection, Your Honor. Is that a question? Is a statement? I mean, if it's a question to the...
Well, he's an adverse witness, so she can cross-examine if she wants to, number one. Number two, I mean, the reason I said we were not going to call it cut and paste is that assumes facts that are not yet in evidence. Now, you can ask questions about assumptions that you're drawing from the appearance of the document, but that's why I've said we're not going to call it a cut and paste. Now, I think the witness has called it a compilation, so why don't we call it that for a while until we decide that it's something else?
So this appears to be a compilation of several different emails into one.
I agree. Compilation. Yes.
Okay.
And go ahead.
No, that's okay. We're here to learn from you. Tell us. What were you going to say?
No, I'm agreeing with you. That does appear to be a compilation of emails.
Okay. And can you pull up Merchant 0167? So there's a redacted section here, and then you can see under that, I sent a story via critical mention a few minutes ago, direct link below. Okay? So this, and this were removed from that email. It just starts with I sent a story via critical mention. All of that is not in that compilation document, right?
As it relates to the headers.
As it relates to the, I'm sorry?
This.
Yes.
No, it does not appear to be so.
So this was all removed. And the document just starts right there.
I cannot tell you if it was removed. I think my testimony, Your Honor, is that this particular request came in January 8th, right? We responded on January 9th. On January 18th, we responded to the documents, right? Once we responded to the documents, you accepted it. What I need you to hear is
they so disrespectful, like they're talking to children. And what I need you to hear is, and I can't stand that, right? Yeah, like he talking to his homeboys, right? Okay. All those fillers. It doesn't make sense. You're testifying in court, and you're answering with, when every time you call yourself making a point, you put right, like someone is agreeing with you. Sir, just give your testimony.
we closed that particular file. It was not elevated to me. Your second one was elevated to me. Let's call that critical mention 2, if I may. That critical mention 2 referenced the first critical mention, right? In that critical mention 2 that you just displayed to me, it had only one specific item. I am looking for analytical graphs. I responded to that request. So as it relates to anything that from the first time I gave it to you, it was responsive because this is me as the business record custodian. Once I received the second critical mention reference that referred to the first, you and I can agree that the first had, let's just say, 5 things. You only made mention of one thing in the second one. I assumed 1, 2, 3, 4 was resolved, that is closed, and I responded on January 26th to the remaining issue. So as it relates to compilation, I want to be very clear. It was sent to you. It was responsive to your
So I guess everybody in that office is walking around wanting to be very clear, speaking in the manner in which their boss speaks, because this doesn't make sense.
request. I moved on. You referenced it. Once you referenced it, it was elevated to me. The elevation was one specific item. So I assumed that the first matter was resolved and the only outstanding issue related was analytical drafts embedded into something, which.
And I'm sure that he makes too much money for him to be assuming in a position of an employee for a company that is driven by results. There is no room for assumptions.
Which I responded to you on January 26th. Is that clear?
No.
Okay.
And so let me break it up because there was a lot. So I tried to take notes. First, you said I accepted it. So on January, whatever the date was, 18th, I accepted it. When you said I accepted it, you sent me a document and I accessed it and it was immediately closed. So you're saying that's an acceptance of the open records response?
I am saying that we sent you the open records response that's responsive to your request.
Yes.
All right. I am also saying that you opened up another open records request. In your second open records request, that's why it's very important we do not refer to this as globally. You make reference to the first. Yes. You said here in court that the first one was very detailed, in which I agree. Okay? I let you know that I did not have anything to do with that. You gave responsive records. Once you respond to me in reference to the first one, and there is one thing outside, I am a reasonable person, that's the word that you use, will assume that the first is over. It's done. It's complete. So I am assuming, reasonable or not, that you accepted the open records request because you said, here's a second one. I did this, I'm referencing that, and here's a small section.
First he said he was going on the reasonable person's theory because that's what she was going on. Then he comes back and contradicts himself by saying reasonable or not. So it's no satisfying an individual like that. There's no way she can ask him a question because his disdain is for her, the individual. He doesn't give a care about the professionalism at this stage. He's gone too far.
So you assumed I accepted it and...
It was delivered.
Hold on.
Is that better?
Delivered.
It was sent to you on January 18th.
Yes.
Y'all, there is no reason to argue about the semantics of what we're talking about. It is not in dispute that on the whatever day it is that the Open Records Act portal sent you a batch of documents. And then I don't think it's in dispute that that request was closed, and then you followed up on it, which the county or the Fulton County, whatever we're gonna call it, treated as a new request that referenced a prior request. We don't have to argue about whether it was accepted or received or acknowledged or whatever. The facts are what happened. Let's move on.
So you said that it was that was responsive to my request, but it didn't completely respond. It only partially responded to my request, the first one. The 44 pages weren't all that you had.
Objection, Your Honor. Is that a question or a statement?
It's a question. The 44
Okay,
pages.
hang on. When there's an objection, let me deal with it. We're just going to put a question mark on the end of Ms. Merchant's statements because technically that's what they are, but they are allowable cross-examination questions. So.
I want to put the witness in the best position to answer the question. So if it's not posed in the form of a question, I think that's onus is on her to pose it in the form of a question as opposed to a statement.
I think that right now I'm gonna, unless I believe that it's being deliberately confusing, which so far it is not, I'm going to allow Ms. Merchant to question the witness. And I'm gonna overrule your objection for now. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Having heard that, we've heard some of this the other day when I played, but it kind of went off abruptly in my opinion. And so this is the whole version, and we're going to move forward a little bit so that we can hear this nice nastiness here, because he's very belligerent. Defiant, obnoxious, disrespectful, immature. You pick the adjective.
I thought it was exclusively, you cannot talk to the media based on context that you provided.
Context I provided? Can you put my original open records request back up?
Not via the Open Records Act.
I'm sorry?
Context you provided, you're going to the Open Records Act. I am not scoped to the Open Records Act. I'm saying context that you provided, because you did provide it.
Right,
But
well,
I'm
we're
not,
going to put it up. And you can show me where.
but I'm telling you it's not in the Open Records Act. In one of your...
So there's no context in this. Is that what you're saying?
Only context is required to sign regarding speaking to the media.
And there's nothing in my letter where I said, if you don't give me these, we're going to have to file a suit. There's nothing that provided anything different than this, correct?
That's not true. Not in that letter on January 24th?
In regards to the confidentiality.
I do not believe that, but there's been emails, right? No.
I'm sorry?
On January 24th, you did not make any mention, you did not provide additional context as it relates to the speaking to the media on January 24th letter.
Okay. So when we had to file the lawsuit, the open records case here, you had not provided any confidentiality agreements in response to this original open records request.
The answer is no, as I thought that your request was limited to the media, so no, I did not have that.
Would you agree that the 22 documents that were provided recently, within the past week, would be responsive clearly to this request?
I agree. It is for as it relates to confidentiality. If it was presented to me as, hey, this we're looking for media and or confidentiality, I would have gave you those. But again, I interpreted let me take responsibility. I interpreted it as an NDA, a non-disclosure. I discussed that because I interpreted it as a not to speak to the media.
And in regards to this confidentiality request, did you perform any searches in response to this open records request?
This is an example of I will go to my investigative team. Do these exist?
So in response to this, you went to your investigator team and asked if any of them existed?
Not in response to this, let's be very clear.
What did you do in response to this?
I interpret this as the media. I know that as the business record custodian, as a deputy of operations, I know that we do not have any request related to employees, any signed forms saying that you cannot speak to the media. I know that to be certain. So I did not do anything as it relates to this open records request based on my interpretation, and my interpretation is because required signing regarding speaking to the media. So let me be very clear. For that open records request, I did not do anything because I read it as required signing regarding speaking to the media.
But you personally thought this was elevated to you for some reason.
This was elevated to me, and when it was elevated to me, it was presented to Mrs. Merchant want media statements. Do they exist? No, they do not exist. To which I responded to your open records request, they do not exist.
Were all of my records requests after January 18th, were all of those elevated to you?
No, I don't. You have, again, we disagree on the number. We know there's a lot. You have asked from my office back from September a lot of standard things, all of which we responded to in a timely manner. I hope you can agree to that. So I don't see all of your requests.
Did you sign a confidentiality agreement?
No.
You've never signed one?
I don't think so.
You don't remember?
I don't remember. I don't think so. I do not think so.
Do you believe that only 22 employees of the district attorney's office have been required to sign a confidentiality agreement?
I don't have no belief. I don't have a position on that. I know my staff. I can speak for my staff. No. And what I think I gave you were
I'm sorry? You think you gave me?
No, I can speak for me. I don't believe I signed one. I know that my staff, my direct reports, they have not signed one.
Your direct reports have not?
As it relates to my direct team, I did not administer, I did not facilitate the signing of those particular documents. So I cannot speak to that.
So at this point, the 22 that we've received, I heard testimony of 150 lawyers, 300 and something staff. Is it your testimony that in response, and we now don't have any semantics confusion, right? Like it's confidentiality agreement. Is it your testimony that only 22 confidentiality agreements exist from Fani Willis as the district attorney's term?
Based on my research and based on me asking around about confidentiality agreements, I provided that.
All right, let's talk about your research then.
Okay.
What did you do to respond to this request?
Security team, do we sign confidentiality agreements? Executive assistant, do you have confidentiality agreements? Chief of staff, do we have confidentiality agreements? Oh, we do? Who? Why? Okay, get these, let me give these to the council. So that.
And perhaps his asking questions is researching it, because he's asking them and they then put in the work to look to see. But just asking the question, to me, is not a sufficient answer. And that's just one woman's opinion.
It's a standard, when you get a request, hey, I'm looking for confidentiality agreements. I think that you can respect the fact that, hey, do we have them? Do we have them? Let me show due diligence. Do you have them? Do we do them? Do we have them?
So you did not do that in January, you did that recently?
That's correct, because in January, as I stated, I thought it was limited to the media. I know media doesn't exist, so I did not very clearly do it in January. I did not.
And in response, you asked the security team, the executive administration, and the chief of staff if they had any of these non-disclosed.
Remind me, these was maybe done 4 years ago. Is this something we did? Do we have them? Who have them? Are they made? So yes.
What I'm trying to understand is if you're saying, swearing under oath, that 22 are the only 22 that exist.
I cannot tell you that.
You're
I can tell you.
custodian, right, for this office?
So I can tell you what I did. When I got this, when council presented to me and said, hey, media, let's go, instead of looking at it from a narrow scope for media, let's look at it from a confidentiality agreement. Dexter Bond, as the business record custodian, what could you do? And I'm answering the question as to what do I do. Now you are looking at my efforts at what I did, and you're trying to conclude that my efforts yielded to a totality result. And I cannot confirm that. I can tell you what I did in good faith.
Did you send out an email to all staff saying, who has signed a confidentiality agreement? Please respond. It's
Oh,
been
I didn't do
requested.
that. No,
Did you send it out to all supervisors?
no,
Did you send it out to all attorneys?
no.
Did you send it out to anybody?
I'm not sure if I sent the email. I don't know. I made some calls, and I had my team make a call, so I don't know. But I know only a handful of people can do all DA. I can tell you that right now, so I know that.
You can now, right?
You said what?
You can.
Oh, I can.
So if you wanted to, you could send that out.
If I wanted to, I wouldn't have. Yeah, if I wanted to.
So,
But also, if I wanted to, yes, let me tell you why I wouldn't though. I think you can respect that I get probably 500 to 1,000, maybe 1,500 emails a day. There's no way that I would have sent an all DA email and I would have had to transport, hey, put this in this portal, so I would not have done that.
so how did you get the 22 that you gave us?
I think I answered that question. I told you I called the chief. I answered that question.
As how you got it, like literally how you got it.
I believe they were scanned to me.
Who
It was
scanned it to
compiled
you?
and scanned to me. Can't tell you. I assigned this.
I'm sorry?
I assigned it to someone.
Oh, who did you assign it to?
Probably my team. Hey, I need to do this.
This is a sad situation for people that make 50, 60, 80, 90, $100,000, 125, 150,000. And he's not working at all. This man has no knowledge of the operations of his department, the functionality of his department, and he certainly does not know his job description.
Can you take the steps in a staff meeting? I cannot tell you who specifically did it. And I made some calls. That's why I know I had an email. Do we have this? Do they exist? Is this familiar? And that's what I did.
So you asked some staff, and you don't know who that staff person is, to make some calls to see if these exist.
So when we're in a staff meeting on Tuesdays, right, I have several different people that sit around the room, right? And then I would say, hey, these are outstanding issues. This is my elevation time. Like, if there's an issue, let's elevate this. And hey, you need these things for open records. Hey, can you take the lead on this? Take the lead on this. Take the lead on this. Report back to me on Thursday as it relates to what we did, how we did. In the meantime, I'll make some calls to figure out where we are. So that's my routine practice on open records.
And that request was done roughly in the last 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, that fairly recently. Because again, when I first got the request, I thought it was related to the media. As my student counsel said, hey, let's look at confidentiality agreement and let's make it a little more broad. I followed those instructions and I did, and I told you what I did.
Is there any way that I could have been more specific without using the terms actual confidentiality and agreement?
If I could, to be honest with you, no. Now, because this was elevated to me, I wish that this was a request that I would have read myself and not allow it to be paraphrased to me, because I thought that this was required regarding speaking to the media. I gleaned it, okay, speaking to the media, and then I went ahead and said, hey, listen, I don't have.
I'm sorry, who paraphrased this to you? I thought this one was elevated to you.
When it gets elevated, it's a series of things that's getting elevated. Hey, these are things that I look. There are certain times that I'll look and I'll read. I don't know what you're talking about. Let me read this. There are other times where it's just like, I'm looking for X. I will briefly look at it. Oh, okay, let's go. So I just want to be the elevation process. Let's educate. On Tuesday, we sit around the room. We have open records conversations among many things.
I believe at the beginning of his testimony, they did declare him, they didn't call it hostile witness, but it was something to that effect, because he's definitely difficult and hostile.
Once that happened, if there's an elevation process, it was, hey, here are 15 open records items that we have. Do we have this? Do we need this? Is this an exception? Do I need counsel? Do I need to research? Do I need to redact? That's how it happens. Some of which are, hey, do we have media non-disclosure agreements prevent staff from media? That's a paraphrase. Or, hey, this person is asking for such and citing the law and such and stuff. I don't. Those are ones where I'm like, hold on, wait. So I want to be very clear.
I want to be very clear too, because I'm a little confused now. So if it gets elevated to you, that's when you talk about it in these meetings? But otherwise you don't?
If it's a standard invoice, I thought I answered that. If it's a standard invoice or something simple, it doesn't get elevated to me. It gets handled by my staff.
Okay, so only elevated ones get talked about in this meeting?
In this meeting, or hey, Dexter, I need you to look at this. I need you to weigh into this. Yes, it needs to be brought to my attention. But if you're looking for something, as you have, a specific contract, if you're looking for something specific and it is clear, it cannot be interpreted any differently, then yes, my staff has full reign.
So you don't personally review the request when it's elevated? It can be paraphrased?
There are times where if I have a 20 open records request that needs my attention, there are some that I can go through. I will take a quick gander. There are others that will require me to, hey, I need to make a call. I need to do something. I need some consulting. It's hard for me to tell you there's one way to handle 1,000 open records requests in a year.
And other than Erica, who you've mentioned, who else is on this team?
It depends. For example, if it's a big redaction project, I have to add someone. If it's a media project, I have to. So it varies based on staffing levels, workloads, and actually what I need to do.
Well, I don't want to belabor the point, but you were saying that some unknown staff, and you can't identify who it is that would paraphrase this. Who else could?
No. Okay. As it relates, I have one designated open records person, right? That what she has the authority to elevate. As it relates to handling matters, then I, because she's the only person, have the authority to say, based on the totality of circumstances, I need you to handle this redaction.
Okay.
I need you to look into this particular exemption. I need to. So let's be very clear. I got one person that open records is all they do. But as you know, sometimes redactions, exemptions, interpretations, those things can be out.
I want to try and get through the last couple areas. The next request I made, and this is at Merchant 034 in case we need to look at it, was for, I specifically said, I am seeking personnel records. That's the first.
I would have to look at that open records request. Oh, okay.
It's Merchant, for the record, Merchant 0340. On January 8th, I said, I am seeking personnel records. And then I said, I'm requesting a list of attorneys with their names and date of hired by the district attorney since Ms. Willis became district attorney. And again, I stated, including the date of hire. This request was clear and concise, correct?
No.
It was not?
No. I'm seeking personnel records. I think you and I agree. What personnel records? That's a little overbroad and stuff. Then as it relates to the second part, I'm requesting a list of all attorneys with hiring dates, hired by Ms. Willis, the district attorney, Fani Willis, and to which I responded. So the first sentence, I'm seeking personnel records. I didn't know.
You didn't know what?
Personnel records, that part right there. I'm answering your question, was it clear and concise? The answer is no. Based on the first sentence, I'm seeking personnel records. The second sentence, you say that you need 3 things. A list of attorneys. Those attorneys need to have a hiring date, and that hiring date needs to be hired by Fani Willis. That's what you're seeking. To which I responded, I don't have responsive records.
So if you did not think that this was clear, did you reach out to me for clarification?
No. And I won't reach out to you.
And I think we agree it wasn't responded to within 3 days. I don't know.
I didn't agree to that. I'm telling you right now that I responded to that open records request, and I said I don't have responsive records.
I was asking if we agreed to that because I know Ms. Monroe was looking to see if she agreed.
Right, but in fairness, the witness didn't know.
Yes, I know, and I was trying to finish that.
That was the conversation we had before. Ms. Monroe, did you ever have it? I know we decided to go ahead and get started, and it seems like it's a good thing that we did. Do you have any insight as to whether there can be a stipulation about whether the responses that are at issue in this litigation, the requests that are at issue in this litigation were responded to within 3 days?
Okay, so the request regarding the forfeiture reports, that request was submitted on January 18th, and a response was sent for an extension on that same day for 5 days. And then a letter, I'm sorry. Then a response was given back January 28th. So there was a response within the 3 days. It was just for an extension, but not for the provision of records.
Okay. So y'all can educate me to the extent you need to, but my understanding is that a request for an extension of time to locate documents can suffice sometimes, but at some point there has to be production of documents within the requested time period, right? So if it's give me a document, within 3 days you have to acknowledge the request and say, here you go, or we need more time to find it, which is okay, but then if you say we need 5 days to find it, you have to give it to them within that time you said for it to be timely.
Right.
Have we followed that trail and determined if we can agree that records either were or were not provided within either the 3 days or the time period requested by the DA's office to comply?
Okay, so as it pertains to the forfeiture reports, documents were not provided within the 3 days.
Okay.
And then ultimately determined that there were no responsive records. And then in terms of the requests regarding rebranding, promotional materials, that was not in 3 days. And in terms of, and there were also no responsive records for that. And in terms of the list of hirees, which she's talking about right now, so yes, so that was actually responded to timely, but not with records, but with a response saying no responsive records. So we had the response that was submitted on the 8th, and then on the 9th, a letter, which is the following day, a letter was sent saying that we need 7 to 10 business days to accommodate your request, something to that effect. I don't have a letter in front of me, don't quote me, please. And then on the 18th, which is within that 10-day period, there was a letter saying that no responsive records that was sent to the requester.
Okay.
So out of the, sorry, I only gave, how many did I do? 1, 2, 3. And for the final one, the NDAs, the request regarding the NDAs, that was not responded to timely, and nor were any responsive records provided within the portal under that request.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome. Ms. Merchant.
Thank you. Okay, so this was filed January 8th, this record, and the response was lodged January 9th that said you were in receipt of the records and to allow 7 to 10 days for research. Would you agree that the response within 3 days did not say whether or not responsive records exist, correct?
I would agree with that, but it did, consistent, as I read, the Open Records Act lets you know what time frame, based on staffing levels and workloads, that I'm going to be able to provide you, and it reads 7 to 10 business days, I need to do research.
And it doesn't say whether documents will be made available.
On the next day that you gave me this document, I could not make that determination. I needed to do research, so I outlined how long I needed to do research on 24 hours. Was it 24 hours? Yeah, about 25 hours after you received that. I acknowledged your receipt and I told you I need more time.
And then on January 18th, you responded that no responsive records exist, correct?
Let's see, January 9th, I told you 7 to 10 business days. Within 7 to 10 business days, I said, hey, we don't have any responsive records.
So that's correct?
That is correct.
And we're still referring to the personnel records request, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. What efforts specifically did you do to actually locate these records?
Talk to my HR team, and I know for certain because HR reports to me.
This man actually wants us to believe that they hire individuals and they have no records of the individuals that they hire, but the individuals get paid every 2 weeks, once a month, however they get paid, once a week, first 15th. But they have no record and they cannot extract the name and the dates of hire and salaries if that's a part of the request. They can't provide that to a request. Makes no sense. This stuff is elementary that these people are really just, I mean, they're showing us the corruption, and it's a culture of corruption. And it seems to be acceptable because people don't know their rights. But we have a right to hold these people accountable. Just like we have to go to work and do our jobs, and we're graded on a grading system that will be, based on whether we get a raise or not, whether we keep our jobs or not, whether we make permanent or not. This is unacceptable. And really, everybody should be talking about all of these different things. And I'm sure it's happening throughout cities everywhere. But since the spotlight is on Atlanta because they love RICO charges, then we need to look at what RICO is and who maybe should be charged for RICO. Because maybe the wrong people are being charged for RICO. Especially these young men, mostly have all been charged in their crimes, with the exceptions of the ones that's guilty of crimes. They have immunity, or they're not a part of the indictment. It doesn't make sense.
That I do not have a list of attorneys, one, hired by District Attorney Fani Willis, two, with their hiring dates. Those are three variables that you wanted. I know for certain that I don't have that.
What searches were performed?
I talked to my HR team, and then at that point, I know that I do not have a list of all attorneys hired by the District Attorney Fani T. Willis with the hiring date.
And you also then received, after this, so this was on January 18th.
Now, what makes that almost illegal is that 2 years ago, I believe it was After Class that mentioned it, but 2 years ago, 4 years ago, she stood before the county commissioners and she blasted them out for monies to hire new attorneys because she needed them. So if no such list exists, or no record that you can make a list from exists, then wouldn't that be considered fraud if she got the money for that? And none were hired? Because there has to be somewhere a record of the people that's been hired in that office, the dates they were hired, and the salaries in which they were hired. Doesn't make sense. Nothing he's saying makes sense. He makes the DA look awfully bad. And she can go to the churches and tell them that.
I filed a letter on January 24th, again, asking for these documents. You received that letter, correct?
I do. And again, that particular letter had several different open records requests that was outstanding. Can't remember the number. I know it was more than 12. And I think I told you the same thing I told you on the 18th. That there are no responsive records, because as I sit here today, I don't have any responsive records.
My question was, you received a letter from me January 24th where I asked for these again, correct? Did you receive a letter January 24th?
Yes.
Where I asked for these again?
I don't know if you asked for them again. I received the letter on January 24th. As we already said, that letter had several different open records requests. Yes, this was probably included in the letter of more than 12 open records requests that I addressed from your January 24th letter.
Give us a minute. Hold up. I actually have a hard copy. It's 0080. For the record, it's 0080. 0085. Take a look and tell me if that refreshes your memory.
January 24th letter. I'm assuming, so direct me, you're talking about section 3?
Section 3.
Yes.
So I again clarified, asking if this meant that she had not hired any attorneys or that you just were claiming that you didn't have a list. Okay. Is that correct? Did you receive this?
I did receive this.
Okay. And before we move on, how many number requests for this letter?
Let's look. One.
You can look at the last one. They're Roman numerals.
Hold on, wait. Well, look at this number 1. You see how many is in here? So how do you want me to handle it?
So each are one request. So if you want to look and see how many requests.
I'm sorry, Ms. Merchant, I can't hear you.
I'm sorry, here, I'll get back and ask her.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I forgot. All right, isn't it true that we go up to Roman numeral?
That's the look that one has when one knows I have effed up.
Number 10 in this document. There are 10 requests in this document.
Ma'am, look at number 9. That is 2 requests in 9. So you cannot correlate Roman numerals to requests.
2 requests in number 9?
Look at 3, 4. I'm sorry. Don't know Roman numerals.
Objection, I'm sorry. I understand that counsel is trying to get to the contents of the letter. At this point, I don't see the relevance in having the witness count the number of requests in the letter, so if we could just get to it.
Judge, part of the argument has been that it's burdensome, that I requested 40, we started with. There's 10. One of them I had to duplicate because it was closed without being responsive. There's 10.
Your letter, I can read your letter.
Okay.
I know how to count and read, right? And so there's no point in arguing about it.
You responded to that letter and said nothing exists,
In
correct?
this letter, you presented 10 Roman numerals that dealt with a lot of different requests that was outstanding, but you so commonly forget that we have had several different open records requests outside of this particular letter, dating from September. So this letter only deals with open records that was outstanding. Each Roman numeral deals with various different requests. Let's be clear.
My question was, if you sent a letter in response to this.
You asked me that 3 times. The answer is yes. You received it on January 26th.
And it said that you do not retain records and cannot produce them.
And I told you that 3 times because as I sit here, I do not have records. I do not have a list of hires from attorneys with the date of hire that was hired by District Attorney Willis. I told you that on the 26th in response to the open records request. I told you that now. And I told you that previously.
One point of clarification, because you've said the same thing several times, and you're putting emphasis on a particular part that I'm curious about. Call it the rule of judge's interest. But I understand, and I think I started this hearing with this discussion about sometimes we know things that don't exist in a document. But you keep saying I don't have a list of attorneys with their hire date who were hired by attorney Fani Willis, the DA Fani Willis. Weren't all the attorneys in the DA's office hired by Fani Willis?
Oh, no. We have some DAs that was hired by District Attorney Paul Howard.
Well, I'm certain they have worked for the DA's office for a long, long time. But didn't she decide to hire them when she became the DA? And I'm not challenging you. I'm just asking to make sure I understand if there is or is not a distinction.
I see that. Yeah, I can see that. But
According to the whistleblower, she did because she said all had to reapply for their positions. Nobody's job was carried over. They had to reapply. And then they were chosen by Madam DA, as they called her. And he doesn't know that, and he's her right-hand man. Judge Judy says if it doesn't sound right, it isn't true. If it doesn't make sense, it isn't true. This that he's saying isn't true.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, but at least I understand better why you were drawing that distinction.
stage.
Mhm. Well, I was drawing that distinction because that's what she asked for.
Okay.
And
No,
I got you.
I wasn't challenging what it said. You were placing emphasis on it in a way that to me seemed to inform how you understood the request. And now I have a better understanding of how you understood the request.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor. I will say this, based on this particular request, what I have done is to reach out to the Chief Human Resources of the county to see if I have a list of, hey, here are the list of attorneys hired by District Attorney Willis with their hiring date. And I can tell you right now, as I sit here, I don't have that.
When did you reach out and make that request?
During to the county HR in the course of this litigation.
Okay, so not when I filed the open records request.
I didn't have to at that time because I know I didn't exist. So the answer to your question is no, I didn't feel a need to reach out at that time.
But then in response to the litigation, you did feel the need to reach out and actually ask the question?
Well, once litigation is, I'm like, okay, what can we do to resolve this matter? Is there anything extra? I feel comfortable. Let's be very clear. Under the Open Records Act, I did what exactly is required of me, the law. Now we're in litigation. Let's see if there's anything possible else that I can.
He did not do what was required of him in law, because if he think that he did what was required of him in law, then he needs to be fired. He needs to be an apprentice that was fired, because there is no way in the world that he could say that they have all of these people records, but they couldn't have gone and extracted their names and hire dates. Just doesn't make sense to me. If the list does not exist, then let's bring it into existence. That's how that works. That's how you resolve problems in the workplace.
I did that extra, and guess what? The records still don't exist.
And I know we already verified that as the open records officer, you were charged with maintaining records under the State Records Management Act, correct? We already talked about that, right? Early on, that's part of your job.
The Office of the Fulton County District Attorney seeks to maintain records and consistent with the State Retention Act.
Okay.
Yes.
And that act requires that your office maintain records documenting an employee's work history in a case file, including the date they were hired, and if there was no hire decision. And you have to keep those records for 50 years or 7 years following the date of separation of the employee. And you're mandated to actually keep them in your own office. You can't delegate that responsibility to a central agency.
So you're reading the retention law that I have not read, but I can tell you this. You started the sentence saying as it relates to personnel files. So you said case file date, right? In your open records request, you're looking for a list. I'm afraid you're misleading the court because you're convoluting a retention record that discusses personnel files, but you're seeking via the Open Records Act a list. Those are two different things. So let's not put the list into State Retention Act. They're two different things.
Did you have personnel files?
Go ahead.
Did you have personnel files?
Did I or do I? Yes.
Both. Did you?
Yes.
And you did?
Yes.
And do those include the date that someone was hired?
Yes. A personnel file should have the date that they was hired. The answer is yes. Do I have a list? No. I don't have a list. And if you think that it is reasonable for me to go look at find out who was hired by the DA, pull that HR file, scan that HR file to make a list, I don't think that the Open Records Act requires me to do so. So as I sit here, no, I don't have it, and I told you what I did.
Did you have a question? Nope. Okay, sorry. Thank you. Your office also produces newsletters with lists of all of the employees of your office, is that correct?
Office morale, yes. We have bi-weekly newsletters, winter reports, we have quite a few.
And it's got something called a directory of attorneys?
Yes, that's the directory.
Okay. And so someone has to get this data somewhere with this list of attorneys, right?
I don't, unfortunately, while graphics does report to me, I don't know if I got a list of that, but I can tell you, can I take a look at it again?
Sure.
All right.
While you're looking at that, I need to do a sort of check-in with my attorneys. I understood that the court reporter had made arrangements to be available until 5. Mr. Bowman had indicated he had an issue Do we need to adjourn? Can we carry on in your absence for an hour? Can you stay? Where are we on that, Mr. Bowman?
Yeah, I can push it for a few more minutes, but I know.
In response to this Open Records Act request, and if so, when? And so to the extent that's the conversation we're trying to have, that's allowable. And with that clarification, please go ahead.
Thank you. I received, number one, in regards to a subpoena in a criminal case from the county attorney's office. I did not receive that from you in regards to the open records request, so.
Okay, we're gonna have to disagree. Let's move forward.
So let's go through this then. This document, 0025, the only response you sent was on January 25th, where it says, please log into the portal to review the attached record. It's been extended, correct?
Let's look at that letter. Yes.
It's, if you can scroll up a little, it's higher up. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
And then the letter that we're referencing is that same letter that you gave us earlier. It's at Merchant 0087.
That deals with a whole lot of open
Yes.
records requests.
Yes.
So let's go to that letter.
And that's
Let's
it.
look at 011724.
It's 0087.
00. Okay.
And you wrote, in regards to this request specifically, that this office does not maintain responsive records and cannot produce the records I seek.
Show me.
It's number 5.
Number 5. So that's 01924. Right? Number 5, 01924.
Oh, so the request,
So you're
if
changing
you
numbers.
go,
I'm confused.
so the original request
What's the
is, oh, you'll go to the next page then. It's 011724.
Zero zero one seven. Okay, you can direct me.
It's number 8. Yes, number 8.
If that is 011724 related to promotion material rebranding, that's how I responded. Number 8. Yes.
So you never provided any records in regards to this response.
I cannot say that because that is not my contention. You asserted to this honorable court when you started looking at this open records request that this 5 things, some of them have been resolved and there is no longer in this litigation. So I cannot tell you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 what I didn't do. I will take you at your word to say that some of those things, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, was provided to you. So I'm not willing to say I gave you nothing when you have said, hey, I looked at it, some of this stuff has been resolved.
Do you have any knowledge as to how some of this stuff was resolved?
Objection, Your Honor. So it's my understanding that as it pertains to this request, that the only issue at hand was regarding the rebranding materials regarding rebranding and promotional materials. So if
And
we
the
could,
critical mention payment.
Okay. So tell me, Ms. Merchant, why it, in response to Ms. Monroe's objection, why if some of these documents have been provided to you, at some point, in some manner, through some method, why is it relevant today that they were or were not produced in response to an open records request that you served or provided to the state?
It's not at all. But he said that part of this was responded to, that he responded to part of it, and that's not accurate. They did not. The open record. People did not respond to any of that. It has been made moot outside of that in a separate litigation, so I didn't include it in the lawsuit. But he is very literal with these words, and so I was trying to, like, that one request is not an issue. I was trying to save time by taking that request out. But then the witness has now said, well, when we complied with it, and they have not actually ever complied with that. So that's not accurate.
Okay. Again, I think we're getting bogged down in semantics. The fact that the information and data or documents that were sought by plaintiffs at various points through their open records requests have now at some point been provided to them is not the same question as were they produced in response to this Open Records Act request, and if so, when? And so to the extent that's the conversation we're trying to have, that's allowable. And with that clarification, please go ahead.
Thank you. And I'm trying to be clear. So in regards to this request, what did you do to actually locate any records?
Received that particular open record request. I went through it. I cannot tell you if this particular request was elevated to me. I do know that I do not know what rebranding is. I do not know that I do not know what promotional material is. I do know that I responded to that. I cannot speak generally about this, but specifically about this open records request, but I would have done to this request what I have done in all.
Did you ask for any clarification if you did not understand what the term promotional material or rebranding meant?
I will not, I've said this to the record and I'm gonna repeat this again. I'm not having a private conversation with you, Ms. Ashley Merchant. So no, I would not contact you. I am not going to email you. I am not going to talk to you to look at any clarification. I find you to be extremely disingenuous, so I won't talk to you. And clarifications don't require me to reach out to you. What it does for the open records request is require you to put me in a reasonably calculated situation to give you what you have. But let's be clear. If you think that I'm going to reach out to you and talk to you, I'm not.
The fourth request, critical mention, any payments, requests for payments, bids, or paying of critical mention. Did you do anything in regards to that request?
So we talked about critical mention.
But I had to ask for it a third time. And so in regards to the third request, where I asked for the same check that we now have gotten from critical mention, but not from you, did you do anything?
So I'm going to repeat this for the third time. The critical mention came in on January 8th. On January 18th, I gave you 44 pages. On January 19th, you renewed the request. Again, the first request had 5 different things. On January 19th, you only elevated one thing. I assumed on January 18th, you got everything. Because when you don't have something, you elevated that one issue. I then worked to work on that one issue that was elevated. So to answer your question for the third time, no, I did not give you anything on January 18th. I assumed that the records was responsive and they were complete.
You gave no records in response to this request. None.
According to number 8, I said the Office of the Fulton County District Attorney in its normal course of business does not maintain responsive records. As such, we cannot produce the records you seek. Number 8.
I asked you what you did to locate the records to give me that answer. Mm-hmm. Who did you ask for records, if anybody, to give me that answer?
Let's go back.
Who did you ask, if anybody?
I have to see the request.
Give me that answer.
This request was 5 different things. So if you, again, 1,000 requests, right? What we have discovered right here is all your requests came in from September and a lot came in January, right? So in this particular January, I have to go back to it to tell you what I did on these 5 open records requests. So if you can put those things back on the court, I can tell you.
Oh, I'm not asking about 5. I'm asking about number 8. It's open records, number 8. That's the only one I'm asking about.
Gotcha. So we can agree that number 8 corresponds to your open records request. Your open records request seeks 5 things. If you can put those 5 things on the screen, I can answer your question as to relate what I did for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay.
I can make
Merchant
too
0025.
easy. As it relates to branding and promotional, I don't even know what you're talking about. So I told you, let's move on.
Merchant 0025. All right, here it is.
Number one, outside counsel. That was a.
I'm not asking you about that, so we can move on. I haven't asked you about that.
Okay.
But in regards to number 2, I know you said you don't know what promotional material means, but what, if anything, did you do in response to try to find responsive documents for this?
Can I tell you what I did specifically? That's a conversation with staff, because my POV may be limited. What are promotional materials? I don't know. So I don't know what I did specifically. I don't know what. But what I did do is say that I do not have any process for hiring and bids for paying vendors for promotional material. I don't have that.
Number 3, rebranding. Any payments, requests for payments, process for hiring bids and paying vendors for rebranding material. Did you do anything in response to this request?
As a COO of the office, I know about bidding, and I know that there is no hiring or bids related to period. To certain things. And then as it relates to rebranding specifically, I don't know what that is.
Did you do anything in regards to this request?
I've reviewed it, I accepted it, and consistent with the Open Records Act, I gave you a tracking number and I responded to it. So yes, me or my staff did something to this.
Did you do any searches or request any records in regards to this?
As it relates, I'm gonna say yes. You don't want to talk about number 1, but I'm pretty sure that I did a search because you have those responsive records. As it relates to number 2, promotional material, I told you I do not have process of hiring bids. It doesn't require me to do research on that. As a COO of the office, I know the answer to that question. As it relates to rebranding, I think the court and I can all agree, right, that this particular matter, I don't know what that is. As it relates to critical mention, I have discussed several times what my position is as it relates to critical mention. And as it relates to TDI, I did respond. There is no responsive records to that. So did I do something? Yes, I responded in compliance with the Open Records Act. That's what I did.
So my question was, what did you actually do to locate the records? Did you perform any searches?
There were no searches to perform outside of number 1. So I'm pretty sure I did a search for number 1. As it relates to number 2, there's no search because there's no process for hiring bids for promotional material.
So tell us what you did in regards to number 1 then, since you brought it up.
What I would do with any payments, because you requested a lot of payments, right, in previous open records. You requested a lot of contracts. That is something that I can pull as it relates to EMS and provide to you.
So in regards to number 1, can you tell us what you did?
Again, Your Honor, this is outside of the scope of what open record requests are at contention here. If we could just focus on the open records requests or the materials that are missing and that have not been provided.
Judge, I think you deserve an answer, though, that nothing was done in this.
Hang on. I'm gonna save you the time and trouble of making that argument and say, I agree with you that what he provided in response to this request isn't relevant, but the process that he followed, the effort that he made to respond to it versus others, or in a similar way as he made, as a process he followed to respond to others, I think is relevant. And so I'm gonna let him answer the question. Your objection's overruled.
Repeat the question, please.
In regards to request number 1, outside counsel, I requested any payment, request for payment, process for hiring bids, paying outside counsel, including the referenced retraining, which was discussed during the Board of County Commissioners meeting in November 2023. You'll remember you appeared in front of them. There was a big discussion about this. What did you do in response to that open records, number 1?
I cannot recall specifically. I cannot recall.
Do you recall if you did anything in regards to this?
I can speak generally what I would have done. I cannot recall specifically as it relates to this request.
So how can you tell us that it's been fulfilled then if you don't know what you did?
Because as it relates to outside counsel, I cannot specifically tell you what I've done. Generally, for payments, I would have looked to see if there are any outside vendors, which you have asked me for via open records request, and I have supplied to you. responsive records to this. So I don't know how to answer your question, and I cannot specifically talk about tracking number 11724.
What did you do to search for information about the retraining that was required during the Board of County Commissioners meeting? And do you remember attending the Board of County Commissioners meeting in November 2023?
I do.
And you remember there was a big discussion about the DA's budget for things, printing, promotional material, things like that.
That's not how it was reframed, but I do remember that I was present and I represented the office at that BOC hearing.
And the purchasing department had some concerns because you had quite a few outstanding debts or payments.
What department?
The purchasing.
Purchasing. Thank
Sorry.
you. That's
Had concerns about all the spending for promotional material.
That's a mischaracterization of the purchasing department.
Okay, I don't want to get down into the weeds of what, because also there's an official record of what went down at the BOC meeting on whatever day, and if it ever becomes relevant, I can find it and listen to it and know what was said. So let's move.
Yes. Okay. What is relevant is what did you do in regards to when I asked for the communication that was referenced at that meeting? Purchasing said they had gotten with you on retraining your office about purchasing. I asked for that communication. It was referenced during that meeting. What did you do to find that?
That particular training was done by me and the CFO. It was a conversation between me and her. So there is no documents related to that particular training. It was done via Zoom. So that's how, again, I cannot tell you specifically what I did with this open records request. If the conversation is about this particular training, I can tell you what it was. I can tell you that your statement of the purchase department is mischaracterized, and I can tell you that there are no records related because that happened via Zoom and we had a conversation about how to proceed forward.
So you did nothing in regards to looking for correspondence about that, setting up that Zoom or anything like that?
I know I would not set up the Zoom, so no.
Okay. Let's move on to the forfeiture reports. So on January 16th, this is at Merchant 0019. January 16th, I requested reports and itemization for all property and funds obtained through forfeiture.
If you can, don't recall the characterization of that open records request. If you can allow me to see it, I will definitely bring you up to speed. Yes, familiar.
Okay. And this was submitted through the open records portal?
Yes, it appears it was submitted January 16th. Good job, staff. They responded. They gave you a tracking number on January 16th.
And the response, or the request was clear and concise, correct?
Actually, no, it was not.
Okay. So you didn't understand what I was requesting?
No, I didn't, and I communicated that to you.
You communicated that. How'd you do that?
January 26th letter.
You communicated that you didn't understand what I was requesting?
If you can pull up the January 26th letter, I can reference what you're saying.
Sure. I'm gonna be somewhere.
Do you have a physical copy of that letter you can give the witness? It's referenced enough
Yeah.
that having to stop and pull it up each time is, thank you.
Thank you.
So before you go any further, is this the first time you responded to me in regards to this forfeiture request?
No.
Okay, well, you said that what I was asking for was not clear and concise.
That's correct. So, and I told you that, and you gave me this letter, and I'm about to tell you what I communicated. Is that fair?
So you're gonna tell me where you told me it was not clear and concise?
Yes. Do you want me to tell you?
That'd be wonderful.
Let's look at the letter January 26th. I'm gonna direct your eyes to footnote number 1. Footnote number 1 reads, we believe, emphasis on we believe, you are seeking the office's equitable sharing agreement and certificate. These records were filed in accordance with law, state and federal law. And I want you to, let's go back up to number 6, because you're talking about 011624. I say to you, responsive records are attached. So in this particular letter dated January 26th, I respond to your open records request number 6. I let you know know that these records are attached. I give you a footnote, and that footnote lets you know we believe. And if I can, don't want to talk too much, but let me tell you why I believe what I believed. You want me to go there?
No, I mean, if there's something that's relevant to this, but I mean, this is the only response that you're saying you have, right?
For number one, yes, as it relates to the office's equitable sharing agreement and what I believe that she was looking for, and I can tell you what I did to give you that.
Oh, okay, yes, that would be my next question. Well, that's jumping ahead. Give me one minute to get there. So this response, so this one that you sent, and I don't have the date, you've got my copy. It was sent, I believe, January 26th, correct?
Yes, January 26th.
Okay.
I agree.
Can you pull up merchant 0018? So after that, on January 28th, we received something that says apologize for the delay. So after we received this letter, there was an apology for the delay and said that it was still pending.
I'm looking at, what date, January 28th?
January 28th.
January 28th, it reads, this correspondence in response to our response, we apologize for have additional time as needed to fulfill your request. January 28th, yes, it does appear that, if I can, on January 29th, it says all responsive documents were emailed to you on January 26th, 2024.
So I'm trying to take it one step at a time.
Understood.
My question is, on January 28th, 2 days after your letter, there was an open records response that said they apologized, that they needed more time, and that it was still pending, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So
It
then-
appears to be, yes.
All right. Then after that, on January 29th, I received another response that said responsive documents were emailed to me.
On January 29th, and then it says it was emailed to you on January 26th prior. If I met, that was on about where the cyber attack was. So in an effort to communicate to my staff, to all requesters, including you and 1,000 others, we wanted to make sure that everyone has a response that things have changed. So to me, you got a letter on January 18th. I responded to you via email on January 26th. My staff went around this time, hey, let me tell everybody that there is going to be a delay because I don't know what's going on with the cyber attack. On January 29th, it was all responsive documents were mailed to you on January 26th. So I want to clear up that.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get at. So at that point, all you had given me was the equitable sharing summary, and you were saying that's all you had. That's all the responsive documents, correct?
Based on your open records request, that was all all the documents. That's correct.
What efforts specifically did you do to locate the records I requested?
That was, I didn't know what you were talking about, but you said that this was filed with the county and local governing authority. So because it was filed with the county and local governing authority, I called the clerk. I said, hey, clerk, is there anything related to this particular account that I particularly filed?
So hold on, so you contacted the clerk in regards to this response?
Yeah, I contacted the clerk of
That's the clerk of court?
Clerk of DLC, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
The clerk of who?
Board of Commission. You said that I had filed with the Fulton County, a local governing authority. So because I'm taking you at your word, if this is something that I had filed with them, I called the clerk of the Board of Commission, I'm so sorry, to say, hey, is there something that I filed with the clerk of the commission?
So when did you do that? When did you contact the clerk?
Probably any time between January 24th and January 26th when I responded to your letter, because I had to get the copy to provide to you on the January 26th letter.
And you spoke with the actual clerk?
I don't recall.
Was it by phone or was it by email?
Can't remember.
Did you use a county phone?
I can't remember.
Were you in your office when you made that call?
I can't remember.
Was it a woman or a man?
Your Honor, objection. The answer was you check with the clerk. That should be it. What is the relevance of the gender of the clerk? This is irrelevant.
Sustained. It's argumentative.
Okay.
I understand what you're trying to do about what maybe refresh his memory about who he spoke to, but you've made your point. Let's move on.
I'm trying to find out who it is so I can ask them if they spoke. That's the only way I can ask that. But I'll move on. So you talked with someone at the clerk and they said they don't have anything in regards to forfeitures?
That's not what they said. I said, hey, based on your request, right? You said that you can we pull up your request so we can read it verbatim? For the, okay, sorry, glasses off. Can we go down? I'm sorry. It says, reports and itemizations that were required by law to be submitted to the county as a local governing authority, showing what was done with all property and funds obtained through forfeiture, including but not limited to reports showing the funds went and who was paid out of funds. That's what you did. What did I do? I called the clerk of courts. I said, is there a report, clerk of board of commission? Is there something that I file that deals with property and or funds related to forfeiture? They gave me the equitable sharing agreement. I gave it to you. In footnote 1, I said, we believe you are seeking the office's equitable sharing agreement and certificate. These records were filed. Again, I say responsive records are attached.
Who gave you the equitable sharing agreement?
I can't remember. I know who I called. I don't know who responded. I don't know, but I recognize that this was something that was filed with the local governing authority. It dealt with property. It dealt with forfeiture. I sent it to you free of charge. I do know that.
And did they send it to you by email?
I can't remember.
Were any other searches performed?
No, because at that time I gave you exactly what you was looking for. You looked for reports and itemization filed with the local governing authority. I called the county. I said, is there anything filed with this property and seizure? They said it's the equitable sharing agreement. Oh, here we are, responsive. Here you are, free of charge. Item number 6, address closed. So no other searches.
So no other searches?
No,
Okay.
no, ma'am.
So you didn't obtain the document that you filed, that you also had to file, talking about, the equitable sharing is the federal one. There's also a state one for state forfeiture funds. Did you file it? Did you search for anything in regards to that?
You educated me. Say it one more time.
There's a federal forfeiture law and a state forfeiture law. You have to file reports for both.
Did you say that in the open records request?
Did I tell you that you had to file reports for both?
No. You're distinguishing state versus federal, right?
No. You said you gave me the equitable sharing. Equitable sharing is a federal Department of Justice document. There's also a PAC document for forfeiture. 2 different funds, 2 different tracking.
Received.
Did you give me anything about the state tracking?
No.
You gave me the federal equitable funding.
Because that's what you asked for. You said, give me the documents that was submitted to the county, Fulton County, as the local governing authority.
They're both submitted to the county. My question is, you gave me the federal forms. Did you do any searches for the state forms that you are required to do for the county?
No, I did not. What I did do was call the clerk. The clerk said, I have a forfeiture account based, your open record says local governing authority showing what was done with property and funds to forfeiture. It makes no mention of the distinction that you're drawing today. What you're drawing today is completely different. What I did say is hey, I have a point of reference, local governing authority. Let me call the local governing authority. They say, I do have something through forfeiture. I get it. It's responsive. I say in my footnote, we believe you're seeking this.
Okay. My question is, did you do any searches looking for the state documents? Any searches?
No.
Okay. Can you pull up merchant 0571?
But why would I? No. The answer is no. And I would not have done that because you said filed with the county. So why would I then say, hey, I filed with this county, but maybe she wants to look for the state? I do not. You and I don't think alike, clearly.
Let's back up for a second. The federal forfeiture statute requires you to do a document called equitable sharing.
This news to me.
You file it every year as part of your job.
Objection, Your Honor. I'm sorry. Assuming facts is not in the evidence and is also
It's in evidence.
Ms.
very,
Marshall, let her give her objection.
yes, that is my objection.
I'm sorry, because of the crosstalk, I understood. Is your objection is facts not in evidence? Is that your objection?
It's not it assumes a fact that is not yet in evidence, that he filed this every year.
Okay. So, I don't really think there's a dispute that the DA's office actually files this document every year, because they do, but
But whether or not he filed it every year.
I was gonna agree with you, right? That whether he has any knowledge of the DA's office's compliance and requirement to do so, I have no idea. But what I am gonna back up to is, I think you've asked, and he's answered multiple times, what effort he made to comply with that request. And I think his testimony is that he reached out to the clerk of the Board of Commissioners, and they shared with him information about this equitable sharing agreement. He believed that was responsive to your request, and so he identified it, produced it to you, and that was the end of what he believed was his response. That's what I understand to be the testimony at this point. And let's move on from there.
You look at the merchant 0571, is that your name on the front of the document?
What, educate me, this document is what? What is this?
All I asked is that your name on the document?
I see two names. Yes, Dexter Bond is on there. Dexter Q Bond is on there. Yes.
And it lists you as a deputy district attorney operations division, correct?
Yes, but the email associated is Natalie Zellner, last name spelled wrong, so. Okay.
Yes. Have you ever seen this document before?
Counsel has presented this to me.
The county attorney?
My counsel.
Okay.
Ms. Merchant, can you tell me why it matters if he's seen that document before?
Yes, because he said this is one of the documents I was asking for. And he's seen it, he filed it.
Hang on. You're asking him if he's seen it and if he filed it?
Yes. So
Okay.
first I'm trying to identify.
Now I understand why. That's all I asked, was that's why you're asking, because you believe that document was responsive to your original Open Records Act request and he did not provide it.
Yes.
Is that fair?
100%, yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Bond.
So, in your astute research, it appears that you showed 3 different forms, right? In those 3 different forms, each year, there was a different filer, right? So we do know the first year that you received, my name is not on it, okay? The second year,
I haven't asked him about any of
my name is not on it.
Hang on. Sorry. I apologize. She didn't start it with the word objection, but that's what she's doing, is objecting to your answer. So I'm going to deal with her objection before you continue your response. Yes, ma'am.
It's non-responsive. I didn't ask about all those other ones. He didn't have his name on those. They're not relevant. If you want to go through those, we can, but I'm asking about the one that he signed as an example, that this would be responsive, and it doesn't even have anybody else's name on it. So I wasn't going to go through all those other ones.
Okay, so let me back up. Are we still talking about the document that's on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. You just said he signed it. I don't... Mr. Bond.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Let's be clear about what representations we're making. His name appears on this document that, at least to my eye, appears to be electronically generated. So ask him factually based questions about his involvement in that document and its creation, and then we'll be good.
That's what I did, and he was referring to the other 3 documents.
And in fairness, I agree with you, and I've asked you multiple times, Mr. Bond, when she asks you a question, please answer the question she's asking, and then feel free to explain if you choose to do so.
Understood.
Now, let's back up, Ms. Merchant, and ask your question again.
The document that we're looking at, is this something that you file electronically as part of your job?
The answer is no.
No. Do you have anything to do with this document?
Not this document, the answer is no.
Do you have anything to do with the filing of let's see what they call them, the Civil Forfeiture Procedure Act documents?
We're not producing this document, the answer is no.
I'm sorry?
You said, do I have anything?
To do with the filing of these? These are filed with the state.
The answer is no.
So you do not participate in these documents being produced?
No.
So someone else would have submitted it under your name?
I cannot tell you what someone else did. I can tell you, and forgive me, I am going to go on a slight tangent, but I never signed my name Dexter Q. Bond. And 2, my name isn't signed here. It is typewritten, and I would think that whoever is the signer would have that corresponding email address. That name, Dexter Q. Bond, is something I don't go by, okay? As it relates to Natalie Zellner, that is misspelled. That last name is misspelled, and that email address, I would assume if it was an electronic file, I don't do this, it will go back to that particular email. But any indication that I was involved, I can tell you vehemently I was not. And then I can tell you as it relates to a type name that I did not sign, I do not type my name as Dexter Cuban.
So you've never seen this document?
I did not say that. I told you counsel has provided me the document.
That's what I meant before that. Have you ever seen it before counsel provided?
I don't, no, I haven't seen that. Because it appears, based on what you said, it was submitted to the state and it's submitted electronically. So that's what it appears. But again, I don't sign it. And what I do know, based on research, and as you know, that in 3 different of these state filings were filed by different employees, none of whom are me.
I'd like to ask a clarification question. So it says Deputy District Attorney Operations Division, and I think I understood your title is Deputy District Attorney of Operations, is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so even though you might not have done it, is it the job of the Operations Division of the District Attorney's Office to do these reports?
So I don't know, let me explain.
Mm-hmm.
I was presented with 3.
Mm-hmm.
The first one was done by a game unit. The second one was done by a forfeiture unit. This one was done by, well, I don't know who it was done by, but my name was on it.
Okay.
So let's be very clear. I would not say, based on what you provided counsel, 1, 2, and 3, and based on who in my office did this state electronic input, and it needs to be clear that some of those people are no longer in the office, so I cannot verify, but I don't know.
So is it fair to say that this document does exist within your office?
I would say yes. But it's also fair to say that this document is in response to your open records request.
So it does exist. Did you do anything to search for this document?
Not this particular document, no. Why? Because you asked for documents filed with the county. I called the county. I got the equitable sharing agreement. The equitable sharing agreement deals with the substance of your request. I gave you that free of charge, and I sent it to you on January 26th in the email. So no, I did not do anything looking for the state, because you did not ask for the state. You asked for the local government authority, Fulton County. That's what I did, and that's what the Open Records Act requires.
And just to be clear, my request was what the county you had to actually do, what the law actually required.
That's not what your request is.
You can pull my.
Hey, the request is what the request is. Again, I can read, and I've seen the request multiple times.
Yes. So, if you had sent an email out asking for documents that the county required to be filed, would you have gotten this in response?
If you asking me a hypothetical, if I would have did what, I would have got what?
Search for this document. I'm trying to figure out, and I don't know, you gotta understand, I don't know how the DA maintains documents. But these are documents that have to be maintained. So if you had done a search for it, or you had asked people for it, would you have been able to obtain this document?
Objection, Your Honor. This question has been asked over and over and answered over and over. I'd like to move on. We can, please.
Actually, I disagree with you. I think this is actually a new question, which is where would this document exist if you had searched for it? Would you have found it? And that is a different question than whether he created it or was involved in its creation.
I misheard the question.
That's okay. Thank you.
If I received the open records request looking for this, yes, I would have been able to go to a forfeiture deputy or a gang based on how it was filed in the past. But again, this record is not responsive to your open records request.
Do you, as a matter of practice, as the open records officer, do you use email to request open records?
It depends.
So it's not a general practice?
It depends on what you're asking for. If it's something, again, if it's something for a standard invoice like you have sent to me several times, during staff meeting, I would say, hey, make sure you get this. Put this in the portal. So I cannot tell you. It depends on what you're looking for.
So you sometimes do it orally?
Yeah, sometimes I do it orally. Sometimes I do it, yeah.
If you sent emails asking for it, would you have those?
If I send emails asking for it, what is it? What are you talking about?
The records requests.
Yes, if I would have sent email, but sometimes I would have, the emails would exist if that's your question. Sometimes I would say orally. Sometimes I have my, someone else, hey, shoot this email to so-and-so to make sure, call so-and-so. So I don't, without you being specific, it's hard for me to answer your question because with 1,000 open records requests, there's no one set way onto how to meet my constituents' needs.
And I asked if you used email to request records, and then I asked if you sent, if you did, you said sometimes, or depends. If you did use email, my question is, would you have those emails and know exactly what you asked for?
If I, Dexter Bond, sent the email, yes, the email will be on the on my email, my archive, my system.
And so you could provide that to the court so that we would know exactly what you did in response to this request, right?
These requests, you're starting general, then you're getting specific. I cannot follow your question, so I don't know. I told you several times, I don't know what I did on this specific request. You're taking what me saying general, and then you're saying, oh, well, you did do these. That's a correlation that you can't make, ma'am.
My question again was if you used emails.
If I did do
for
email.
record requests.
For a specific record request.
If you used emails for a record request, you would be able to get those and see those, correct?
You will be able to request those, and yes, they will be there. If you're asking, do I delete emails, the answer is no. So yes, they're there. If I send an email, my emails are there.
Did you ask for any of these specific documents that we've talked about here today by email?
We talked about a lot of different documents, so it's going to be very difficult for me to say yes or no. Okay? We talked about the equitable sharing agreement specifically. I told you that there was no, I don't know if I sent the email. I told you that. So the framing of your question doesn't allow me to answer.
Did you ask for any of these specific documents that we've discussed today by email?
As it relates to critical mention.
Did you ask for any of the documents we discussed today by email?
Maybe. I don't know.
Is your use of the phone or in person to request documents on purpose?
On purpose?
Yes.
I don't understand your question. What you mean on purpose?
Do you purposely ask for things orally or in person?
No.
Do that on purpose?
Do I do that on? I don't. No. No. The answer is no. That I don't do anything on purpose.
Have you been instructed not to put things in writing by email?
No.
Have you been instructed not to put things in writing, period?
By whom? No.
Anyone?
No.
What is the office policy on the use of email and putting things in writing?
I don't understand the question.
Objection, Your Honor. So I'm trying to determine what the relevance is in terms of emails and the protocol for emails in the district attorney's office. What is the relevance here?
I think there's a tiny universe of requesting open records documents for purposes of his compliance. So I'm going to sustain your objection partially and ask you to reframe that question because I don't know that the general policy of the DA's office regarding email is relevant here. But Mr. Bond's understanding of any policy regarding Open Records Act requests by email is relevant. Go ahead.
Does the Open Records Act requirements or disclosure, does that guide yours or your office's policy on putting things in writing?
Does the Open Records Act guide you? The answer is I don't understand your question. Does the Open Records Act guide my I don't even know if there's a policy. So you're making an inference that I cannot. You're assuming a premise there, right? And then you're asking a question. You need to simplify your question. What are you asking me? Because you're asking me, does the Open Records Act influence your policy? You have yet to ask me, is there a policy? What are you asking me? You ask me what you're asking. That's a convoluted question that I can't answer.
I first asked you, what is the policy on the use of email?
For open records requests.
Yes. For open records requests.
The policy for email, use your email, and there's no policy. Look at the employee manual. You gave it to me. There's no, I don't know where you're getting at. I'm not familiar with the specific policy on use your emails this way because of open records. If you drawing a correlation to two, forgive me, I don't understand. But there's no policy on emails as it relates to the Open Records Act. There are two entities that are different. So educate me on the correlation.
I had just asked you if there was a policy. So I think that's the first step. If there's any policy on the use of emails in regards to the Open Records Act. Not to put things in writing.
And I answered that question.
There's no policy. Is that your answer?
Yeah,
Because I didn't get it. And I'm sorry. But, I mean,
Okay.
you asked me to rephrase it and then said it was confusing. But
It's still confusing because you're rephrasing it the same way. What I'm telling you is there is no policy as it relates to emails as it relates to Open Records Act, right? Do you want to talk about Open Records Act? Do you want to talk individually? What are you asking me? But I'm answering your question as it's being framed. It's being framed poorly, so you're getting a poor answer.
let's see. Just give me 1 second. Can we take just a couple minutes?
Very couple of minutes.
Okay.
You have something to erase or anything? It's been there for a long time.
I know, it has been a long time.
Here, this is actually an open bottle of water.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Sorry, Judge. I think everything gets picked up, so.
I don't blame you. I'm consistently advising people when Zoom is on, the microphones are there, so.
Okay, I almost done, I promise. Wait, I'm sorry. In response to the subpoena to come here today, did you search for any emails?
Okay. Did I search? I sent your search terms because your subpoena to me was asked for to and from emails. It gave search terms. I believe there was 2 search terms, critical mention and social media monitoring. So what I did do is fill out a ticket, as I do with most requests. I sent that over to the IT department based on what you're seeking. Were there any responsive documents?
Hold on, so if you need to request something from IT, you fill out a ticket for that?
If you give me search terms, so there's 2 different ways, right?
Okay.
So let's say you're looking for documents. And if your document says, hey, give me anything for critical mention, I can then do, hey, do you have these emails? Does this make sense? That's one way to do it, right? Your open records request originally, don't need to be belabor the point, didn't answer that. Your second subpoena was very specific. It was this date to that date. From this email to this email. Here are the search terms. I need these search terms. I can then do a particular ticket, or my staff can do a particular ticket, do it to CIO, the technology department. The technology department can run all emails. And then when they do all emails, they can come and say, hey, based on these search terms and based on my word ticket, here are responsive documents.
Okay. So if you had asked IT for any of our open records items before, there'd be some ticket for that.
there would be some form, some Excel sheet, some requests.
And you didn't bring any of those here today?
Did you ask for them? No, I don't.
But
As
you-
I should know. Why would
But those would be available. If you had asked IT for any documents, there would be a record of them.
I'm not the custodian of the IT records. I cannot speak for IT department, so I cannot answer that question and cause speculation.
Okay, let's just walk through the subpoena quickly. I asked for all text messages sent by or received from employees. What did you do in response to that?
That's an IT question. We needed to figure out what the policy was as it relates to text messages, so I would fill out, hey, IT, this is what I'm looking for.
Did you do that in regards to the subpoena? I'm talking about the subpoena for you to bring documents today.
The subpoena that, yes, and I gave you, hold on, let's be very clear. You asked for, you did not give me no subpoena to bring documents today. Let's clear up the record. What you did was you gave me a subpoena on August 21st to produce records, right? Those records were produced on August 30th. So there is no requirement for me to bring anything today. And I gave you those documents through my counsel on August 30th. So let's clear up the record. There's no requirement of me to do anything.
Talking about the subpoena for you to appear today. The subpoena for you to appear today had an exhibit that asked for emails and text messages sent by or received from in regards to critical mention. What I'm asking you is
I need
what
to see
you
the subpoena.
did.
I don't know what you're talking
Let
about.
her, I understand, but let her finish her question. Y'all can't talk over each other.
I'm asking what you did in response to that.
I hear you. I don't know what subpoena you're referring to. What I am telling you is I got a subpoena that was for the production of records for August, and I gave it to you on August 30th. That's what I'm familiar with, so I can speak to that. If you're speaking of a different subpoena, you can hand it to me and I can review it.
You learned about court here today, correct? Somehow. You knew to be here.
So are you not going, okay, different question. Somehow I knew to be here. Yes, my counsel told me that I needed to be here.
And you received a subpoena to be here today. Whether it be through email or you signed a certificate.
No, I did not.
You didn't get an email with a subpoena.
You probably gave me an email. You probably gave me an email.
So
I'm pretty sure you gave me an email.
I'm sorry?
I'm pretty sure you emailed me, yeah.
And attached to that email, there was a subpoena that included the production of documents, correct?
What subpoena are you talking about? There are multiple subpoenas. I've asked you several times, can I see the subpoena you're referring to? If you're talking about the one to me on August 21st, I can respond and tell you what I did. If you are asking about a different subpoena, I need to be educated. I'm asking, I don't know what you're talking about, so I cannot respond. Are you willing to present to me something?
Of course, and I'm certainly not trying to hide anything. I'm trying to ask questions before.
I hear you, and I'm certainly trying to be very, very truthful to the court and clear up the record. In order for me to do it, because there have been multiple subpoenas, all I'm asking for, if I am under a subpoena, and as you allege that I was supposed to bring something today, that's the allegation that you made, among many, I would like to see it. That's all I'm saying.
Judge, his counsel's already talked about that, and I was understanding that he waived any issues with the subpoena to be here today. If that's not the case, I mean, I'm happy to show it to him, but we have that without him here.
I mean, okay, first of all, it's 4:59, so I need to check in with the court reporter who said she had a hard push at 5 o'clock. Now, I don't wish to interrupt in the middle of questioning when it looks like you were trying to get to a point of being done with the witness, but as you can see, my screen's starting to drop off. That's an indicator that my Zoom's about to die. So that's an indicator that we should adjourn. Separately, I will say I agree with you. I think that Ms. Alabi agreed to produce Mr. Bond. That's a different question, though, than whether he received and was aware of the document request. So we'll just leave it at that for now.
And that's fine. I'm happy to answer this, but I know he was sequestered and didn't know what his
Right.
counsel had agreed to.
Sorry, I can't hear Ms. Merchant.
I know that he wasn't present and didn't know what his attorney had agreed to. And so before we went down that road, I didn't know if he knew that they had agreed that he was here and subpoenaed.
Well, can I respond now?
You may, and then we're going to adjourn because I have to let the court reporter get on with her day since she's filling in.
I'm so sorry. This is definitely important. No, I'm glad I asked. I did not receive a September 13th subpoena. And let me clarify, because you need to know this. The subpoenas that you refer to, my name is not even on Exhibit A. So this is the first time, as I sit here today, that you have given me a subpoena that you said that I was responsible for. So no, I did not get this. It does not say when it was delivered. I have not received anything, and I don't know what was mailed. So no, I did not get this, and I'm not responsible for it.
Okay, and Judge, we've already put in the record the, when it was delivered, and I can put the email in where it was served. I'm happy to print that out tonight, and then we can question tomorrow. About
So why am I not on Exhibit A? Something's wrong with that subpoena. Something's wrong with that subpoena.
Sir, that's a legal argument that your counsel can make. We've had some discussions this morning before you were called in to testify. And so we can have that conversation tomorrow. But it is 5:02. The court reporter did everybody a favor by rearranging her schedule to stay for an extra hour. I assume we have on board a court reporter for tomorrow. For now, I'm going to excuse Mr. Bond, if you would step outside.
Your document is up here.
Oh, thanks.
Mr. Bond, just reminder, Mr. Bond, that you're still testifying, and so you're still sequestered, right, regarding the substance of the hearing, and I'll need you to return tomorrow. I'm going to discuss with these lawyers in just a moment about what time I'll need you back, but just a reminder, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
And not to review any of the stuff today.
Well, I reminded him of his obligation under the rule of sequestration, so he's a lawyer, as I understand it, so I assume he understands it.
And there we have it. It seems like it was kind of almost the same stuff, the whole thing. But I thought I was hearing some different stuff, because I think that we definitely need to keep an eye on the behavior so that we can see what's going to happen when they all fall down. Because the way that this prosecutor is handling all of these cases, and the way they're testifying instead of testifying, surely this is not going to end well for them. Perhaps it will, you never know. But it doesn't look like it. It is just good to do right because it's right to do right. Not for no other reason. Not because someone's looking or someone look at you a certain way. It's if you've been taught right and wrong. Right is just a good path to take and to live your life on. And that way you don't have to live looking over your shoulders and peeking around corners. You don't have to worry about your mind playing tricks on you, because you will be at ease with your mind. Having said that, it's been 3 hours and 44 minutes. I always appreciate anybody that stay with me, and especially the one person that seems to stay the whole time. I'm honored and grateful for anybody who came through. I hope everybody hit the like button. And on that note, I'm going to get ready to say good night. We will see what the week brings, because it's been a lot of information, a lot of things happening and going on. So we'll just see what the week brings to see what we'll do on Sunday. But I thank everybody for joining me. I hope you have a beautiful rest of the end of your week, and I look forward to seeing you then. And we're going to end as we always do. I just believe the children are our future. And so hopefully, we can see a better tomorrow. But for today, thank you very much. I'm leaving the Tiger's Den. Goodbye. I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. Give them a sense of pride to make it easier. Let the children's laughter remind us who we used to be. Everybody searching for a hero. People need someone to look up to. I never found anyone to fulfill my needs. A lonely place to be. So I learned to depend on me. I decided long ago never to walk in anyone's shadow. If I failed, if I succeed, at least I'll live as I believe. No matter what they take from me, they can't take away my dignity, because the greatest love of all is happening to me. I found the greatest love of all inside of me. The greatest love of all is easy to achieve. Learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. And if by chance that special place that you've been dreaming of takes you to a lonely place, find yourself in love.